All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is review and approve minutes.
No minutes.
We don't have any. Second item, sign bills.
No bills.
We'll skip the third. On to meetings and hearings.
We have a new public meeting. Let me just make sure I've got the address, yes. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of general laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations that Aaron Matthew, 29 Redland Street, Shrewsbury, Mass. 01545, has filed a request for determination of applicability for the installation of a fence and shed at 29 Redland Street.
Come on up. Okay. Okay, great, thank you. How are you?
Good. So we are looking to install a fence around the property. The printout that I've given is one of the satellite views that Elia shared. The red line that's on that particular printout, it shows where we want to install the fence. That's where the lawn ends, and anything beyond that, it just falls down. On the right side of the property, or rather the left side of the property, what you see is a retaining wall. It's about 4 feet towards the front of the property, and by the side of the property is about 1 foot to maybe a little over a foot. So we wanted to install a fence there just to keep our kids, safe if they're playing outside.
And there's no cutting of trees?
No.
So it's basically going to be installed on top of the existing
The lawn, just,
lawn and retaining wall area?
yes.
No excavation, other than digging for the fence post, there'll be no excavation?
No.
Diane?
Do you know what, oh, I'm sorry.
Either way.
Do you mind? Do you know what type of a fence you're planning to put in?
We are getting 2 sets of quotes, one for a chain link and one for vinyl. So we are asking those 2 types. We haven't quite decided, but it'll be 4 feet high. But depending on the cost, we'll decide one way or the other.
Okay. And I assume that will also help keep balls and other toys out of the wetland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This area that you see to the left of the property is on the other side of the retaining wall, between the wetland and our property. We don't even go there. There's a bunch of trees and wild plants there. I don't do anything there, but it's a retaining wall. So and this part of the lawn just slopes down, so it's a little bit of a risk if kids are there visiting us or our own kids going out. So we just want to install that just as a protection. This is just a protective barrier, nothing else.
Okay. Thank you. I apologize, Diane, for speaking out of turn.
You did not. Okay, so this is truly a question. Does it matter what kind of fence, if animals need to get to the wetlands and back out again, if they need to travel, right?
Okay.
Does it matter what kind of fence is put in?
I don't know. I guess, I mean, I know there's a coyote in the area, so I would like to keep that out of the yard. Other than that, I've seen skunks in the night camera. I mean, I have a camera by the basement door because I have a walkout basement right there. I've seen I've seen rabbits running around. The deer, there are some deers, but they usually stay on the other side. There are 3 deers that always come. My wife is afraid of snakes, so that was one of the reasons why she wanted to put this, but the fence guy said that's not going to keep them out. So it is what it is. But there was no other intent of any other or preventing any other animal from coming in.
Right, I was probably thinking more about things like turtles.
We had one occasion of a turtle, but that was not even in my property. It was in my neighbor's property. It came and I don't even know where it went. So this area is accessible, it's open. So there's a tree right there. We can't do anything, so this much will remain open. So if animals want to come in or go out, I can't really stop them. There's I don't know what trees, oak or elm, but
Yeah.
there's like a thick tree, so I'm just stopping the fence right there. So there is a gap,
Mhm.
but I can't do anything about that gap, so it's just a gap there.
Leah?
I'm seeing that there's still a silt fence, probably from the construction of the home or the retaining wall.
Yeah.
If that could be removed.
Oh,
um,
remove, okay.
After you've put in the fence, just so that it's not, because it's plastic, so it'll just stay there forever.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
So I think that would be the only condition I would advise, is that the silt fence be removed.
Okay.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we issue a negative determination of applicability for 29 Redland Street for the installation of a fence and a shed. You didn't talk about the shed, but do you want to talk about the shed?
Yes, where's
Yeah,
the shed
the-
going to be located?
So we are also thinking, we haven't gotten a quote on anything for the shed yet, but this area right here, the grass is not the grass is not growing, there's nothing there. So if anything, we thought we'll put in a small shed here, a really small one, just to store my snow blower and the lawnmower. So that's in the plan, but I don't yet know if I'm gonna do that or if I'm just gonna put the fence all over. But that was the plan, that we'll have a small shed right in the corner there.
Okay.
And it'll be within the grassed area.
It's all within my
All within the
lawn
grassed area.
area.
Okay.
Yes,
How
yes.
will the shed be attached to the ground?
Sorry?
Will the shed just be like
Yeah, I
plopped, or
would-
will it be,
No, I would have to call somebody to actually install it, so
okay,
it stays. Like just like the fence, dig it in and, yeah.
okey doke.
I just know because one of my friends did it, so I didn't know it could just stand. I'm assuming that I have to actually, Put it
Yeah,
in, yeah.
attach it to the, okay.
Okay. With the condition that the tree not be removed and there be an area where wildlife can move,
okay,
and that the silt fence be removed upon completion of the fence project.
okay.
Second.
All there in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're all set.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And we have a new public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations, that William Michalski, 24 Canna Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass. 01545, has filed a request for determination of applicability for the removal of 5 trees at 30 Canna Drive.
Good evening.
Evening.
So what do we got?
I had spoke to Leah, and I believe she went by and took some pictures. In the corner by 30 Canna, there's a large, I believe it's an oak, that's completely dead. And then we have, on the steep part behind 30 Canna at the top of towards the top of the hill, there's a twin oak, a very big tree, but right in the notch of that twin oak, it's totally, hollowed out, it's rotten. And then there's 2 other trees that are growing probably like at a 45-degree angle, one over one of the decks and one over the boathouse area that's down below. So, we had them looked at by a couple tree companies. Yeah, I thought one of them was a good tree, but then he pointed out, the center of the twin oak was all shot, that they both would have to go. So, I'd like to have those removed. It is a pretty steep downgrade from our property down to the lake, but I know the owner of 30 Canna has done a lot of work. He has in his church somebody that works at Weston Nurseries that's been doing a really nice job on their own with plantings and stuff like that on the lakeside. So.
So how are you going to remove these? Are you gonna have to use a crane or?
He will have to use a crane, yes. And from the driveway, because it's all reachable from the top of the hill, so,
And are you going to leave the stumps in place?
yes.
Diane?
And you have a plan for replacing?
We don't there, along the property, which, again, on the lakeside it goes down, but also On the other side, the abutting property is pretty steep. That whole line there's a line of trees which is full of oaks, and there's some real young, smaller trees that are already in that area, which are already there. I'm not sure if you saw them when you're out there or if the pictures show it, but there's a lot of small trees that have over the years come up that are, I don't know, maybe 5-inch type trees and stuff like that through that area.
So you would be encouraging those to grow up in the place of the ones that came down?
The ones that are on the top of the hill, there won't be any actually on the steep part of the hill, which probably wouldn't be healthy for them to grow there now, just because how steep it is. I think we would, the nursery guy he's already gone over probably 80% of that hill, which had no growth, with plantings and stuff like that. He would just continue that over. We're lucky to have an owner at 30 Canna that has the ability to, basically spend money of his own, not the condo associations, to really make the place look real nice over there.
So I have a question. You live at 24 Canna,
Yes,
but you're asking to remove trees at 30 Canna.
they're condos, and I'm in charge of the
Gotcha. Okay.
association.
Can you go back to the overview and show the location of those trees?
Make sure this tab is dead. So 4 of the trees are kind of in a clump right above this building by the water, and on the slope. And then there's the 5th tree is. You cannot see my mouse. Good talk. Let me make a circle. So that's probably the 5th tree, and then the 4 trees are kind of all clumped.
Yeah, they're very close to each other. The one
Yeah.
off to the
Not-
right is
not
the
the-
one that's really big, but it's completely dead. And then you got the 4 that are kind of really tight to each other.
And so the trees are threatening the structure? Is that the
No,
concern?
the twin oak is, like I said, it's all where it splits. It's all dead inside. It's all
Right.
And then the other one is completely dead. The 2 other ones they're almost like you could see the angle, but then they even sloop over more. It's those 2 left. I put X's on them, so.
So if they fell, where would they be likely to fall?
One would
What
land
be the
on that
concern?
building below, the one that's leaning
Okay.
towards the lake. And then the one moving left, part of it goes towards that building, and the other one goes over 30 Canna.
Okay, all right. All right, I'm all set, thank you.
Chris?
No questions.
Aaliyah?
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions. I would recommend conditions that the stumps remain in place,
Yeah.
just to confirm.
Anybody in the audience?
The landscaping guy, he actually suggested to leave like a 10-foot stump, but I told him no, we'd want to bring them down. He thought the birds and everything else would love the tall 10-foot stump, but they'll all be cut down, to the lower stump.
Well, you could. It would be probably beneficial if you'd like to do that,
Yeah.
if you want to pick one.
Yeah, we usually recommend you leave a tall stump,
Really?
as long as it doesn't fall and endanger somebody.
No, it wouldn't. There are a lot of other trees that are on that steep part to the right there that go down to a house that's down below, but they're not on our property. They're on the
The-
neighbor's property.
The 5th tree that's separate from this little clump of them might be a contender for the taller stump, because it's on that, there's like the slope where the 4 trees that are together, that are being removed are very tight together and on the very steep slope. And then the 5th tree is kind of up on the more stable part of the hillside.
Agreed.
So
yeah.
that might be a good contender for remaining, because if it falls over, it's not gonna fall down the hill. And would
I wouldn't have a
allow
problem
the-
with that.
Yeah.
It's good habitat.
Okay.
You'll see pileated woodpeckers.
Yeah, that's what I thought, as long as it doesn't bring too many ants and stuff, but sounds like it's a good thing, so.
Yeah, we agree with the nursery guy.
Okay.
Okay, anybody in the audience? Okay, somebody like to make a motion?
Would you like me to make a motion?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue a negative determination of applicability for the removal of 5 trees at 30 Canna Drive, with the condition that the single standing tree be cut to leave a stump of 8 to 10 feet high.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 They're all set.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And we have a new public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations, that Jonathan Scott, on behalf of Prologis, 3350 Peachtree Road, Suite 850, Atlanta, Georgia, 30326, has filed a notice of intent for the construction of a warehouse building with associated parking, paved areas, retaining walls, landscaping, and stormwater infrastructure at 74 Centec Boulevard, 12 Centennial Drive, 414428 Cherry Street, and 46R Cluse Street. Welcome.
Good evening, how are you? Jonathan Scott, representing Prologis here today. The rest of our team you'll see is virtual with us here tonight. Just wanted to do a quick intro. Just, being new here to the town, Prologis, we've been in business. We've got a slide if we can kick those off as well. But Prologis, we've been in business for 40 plus years, developing and also being a tenant owner all over the country and also all over the world in 19 different countries. So just wanted to kind of kick off and just and go with that. We're here. We've been looking into local representatives, people that are of this area. As we look to build this project, we've taken into consideration the wetlands that are around the site. And that's something that Langen, our civil engineer, and Epsilon, our wetlands consultant, will get into. But we've taken a lot of care to make sure that all the wetlands around this project have been, that we've respected all the buffers and followed all the bylaws, which has led us to, as you'll see when we pull it up, a very unique shape for a facility of this type. So that being said, it's not an ideal shape for the facility, but it's something that was extremely important to us and also to the towns, that we make sure that we do our best to stay outside of all of these buffer areas and things of that nature. I'll keep it relatively short, but I'll be the boots on the ground. You'll see a lot of me here in town, and looking forward to really showing you what we've done and present this project to you.
Thank you.
Sorry, a lot of big plan sets. Picked the wrong one. That one's the right one.
John Perry here from Langen. And can you hear me all right, Jonathan, there? Everyone?
Hold on.
Greg shaking his head.
Hold on 1 second.
That's more like it. Are you able to present?
You all set?
Yes. Yep, I had my screen up there a minute ago.
Yes, it was working a minute ago. I wonder where it went
Okay.
off to. Okay, there we go.
And just say your name again. Oh, there he goes. Your name
Yeah,
for
can
the
you do the
record.
presentation. I'm John Perry. I'm with Langen. I'm the civil engineer. And I'm here tonight. I'm representing Prologis. I'm also here with Greg Hotchmuth from Epsilon, who's the wetland consultant on this project. So can everyone see my screen, see the presentation,
You can
Yes.
see the
cover
The
sheet?
title page.
title page.
Okay, great. So Jonathan mentioned a minute ago, there's a handful of other team members here, and I just introduced Greg, who's going to be talking in a few minutes. Also, Fletcher Tilton on the line, who's the land use attorney. Greg and I will be doing most of the presenting tonight. Leighton is going to be the general contractor, with Babcock being the architect. And the tenant, proposed user of the facility, will be UPS. Jonathan, do you want to say any more words about Prologis?
I think we'll get right to it. You know, again, the biggest thing, I know you hear it from a lot of us all the time, but our biggest concern, not only are we a developer, but also a landlord, right? So we stay involved with the projects. We're owner landlord, you know, so we don't just kind of build and usually run off. We want to make sure that we're actually listening and hearing the towns, and that's part of what we're here to do tonight, is to present the project, listen to and absorb any questions and or concerns so that we can address them as quickly as we can and make sure that we work with you guys to get this done well. So, but without further ado, I'll just let you go and jump into it, John.
All right, very good. So here's the project site, and it's about a 212-acre parcel, just south of Route 20, about half a mile. We're bounded by the commuter rail on the south and Route 30, which runs parallel with the commuter rail. The town line between Shrewsbury and Grafton splits the site, with the majority of the site being in Grafton, about 54 acres or so being in Shrewsbury. As you can see, the town line and this dashed black line along the screen here. North, we have a north arrow down here on the bottom left of the screen. So north is essentially, you know, up, plan top, but it is rotated a bit just to make the plan a little easier to work with. So the building's parallel with the sheet there. You know, we are zoned industrial and light industrial, and we've been before the planning board once already. We met with them last week. We'll have a few additional scheduled meetings coming up in the next few months throughout the summer. And we've I want to get into the site a little bit here. This is the site plan, and normally we'd go into existing conditions first, but I want to talk about the site to tell you that it's a very unique development, and we had some site, it's a very unique site as well. There are wetlands shown in this purple outline, and again, this thick dashed line here is the town line. So on the right side of the screen is the Shrewsbury portion of the site, and the left side would be the Grafton portion of the site. There are some wetlands in both towns, and we're actually meeting with Grafton later this evening as well, their Conservation Commission. Typically, the building architecture drives the site plan. We're looking at these types of facilities. In this case, it was the opposite. We spent a lot of time and care to make the building work with the site, specifically to maintain open space and to not disturb any of the wetland areas. And we were able to work with the tenant and with the architect and the developer to really change the ideal building footprint. UPS has other types of facilities, other similar facilities throughout the country that serve the same function, but those building footprints look much different. As you can see here, it's a bit of an unusual shape, right? We've kind of come to call this the tuning fork shape here, with a long wing on the right and these shorter ones on the left-hand side, with a bit of a wider area in the middle. And what this building is it's a distribution hub for UPS, and it serves multiple purposes. Goods come in on trucks and are delivered here for distribution, for sortation, and then distribution. So there will be both, tractor trailers delivering goods here, and there will be the brown package cars that go out for delivery to homes. Those package cars drive inside of these thinner wings that you see on the edges of the building. That's where they load their packages, so they're inside, protected from the elements. The middle is the sortation area, so there's lots of conveyor system is in there. In the middle, along the edges of the building, tractor trailers back up, and that's where they offload and reload goods onto them. Critical to the operations of the tenant is to have adequate, truck parking spaces throughout the site, and to have adequate circulation. So as you see here, we have both the building We have the loading docks along the building, and then we do have tractor trailer staging and parking throughout the warehouse area. And as you see, we've really taken care to make that fit within the limits of the upland areas here. And all of we realize that there are some local buffer zones more stringent than the 100-foot state buffer zone, right? In Shrewsbury, we have the 15-foot no disturb and the 30-foot no build. And say for a very, very small bit of grading in the no build, which is allowed, we fully comply with the bylaws. I want to point out too that we have a separate truck entrance here off of Centec, and then we have the employee parking more planned south off of Centennial. So they will have two dedicated entrances so that traffic doesn't mix together. I want to point out a few of these ancillary uses that are situated in the Shrewsbury portion of the site. One is a maintenance building. So it's a fairly small building where they can perform maintenance of the vehicles, changing tires, fixing broken mirrors, things like that. There's also a wash tunnel where the vehicles can be washed. And then there's a fueling area as well, so that package cars and tractor trailers can fuel up before they get on the road. Okay, and with that, I want to turn over to Greg Hotchmuth from Epsilon to discuss the wetlands.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Greg Hochmuth from Epsilon Associates, and I'll be talking about the existing conditions on the site. As John mentioned, the entire locus is comprised of 7 parcels that total approximately 212 acres of land, 54 acres in Shrewsbury, 166 plus or minus acres in Grafton. The focus of this notice of intent application is on the eastern portion of the locus. And by the eastern portion, if folks are familiar with this site, Summit Brook bisects the property, and it's a large ponded area that eventually drains underneath the MBTA rail line to the bottom of the page here. The eastern portion of the site that we're talking about is east of that ponded section of Summit Brook. The soils on the upland areas of the site on the eastern portion are primarily Chatfield, Paxton, Canton, and Hinckley. The wetland areas are typically Whitman and Freetown muck, according to the USDA soil survey. The site is not mapped as an ACEC or an ORW, nor is it mapped as estimated or priority habitat for rare wildlife by the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program. However, there are 3 mapped potential vernal pools, 3 of which, well, one of the 3 is partially in Shrewsbury and partially in Grafton, and the other 2 are entirely in Shrewsbury. So prior to going out to the site to look at the resource areas, we knew that, so we wanted to take a close look at those areas during our delineation effort. Last November, wetland scientists from Epsilon Associates, including myself, delineated the resource areas on the entire property over a period of about 4 to 5 days. And, November is not the best time to determine if something's a vernal pool or not, but we did get eyes on these areas and knew that we'd need to look at them the following spring, this spring. And what we found this spring was that all 3 PVPs were functioning as vernal pool habitat. We found evidence of obligate amphibians breeding in each one. So all 3 certifiable. And we also identified a BVW system that's located kind of in the central portion of the property that starts at the town line and flows down through the site. Yep. And eventually into a large bordering vegetative wetland system that eventually flows into the same system that is part of Summit Brook. So we identified an IVW, which is labeled as the M series. Just off site above the M series, we delineated the southern portion of a BVW system that extends onto town-owned land on the other side of the New England Power Company easement. And that wetland system, I imagine, is eventually contiguous with Summit Brook. We didn't walk too far onto that piece. So we do have a BVW at the top of the screen. On April 2nd, well, let me back up a minute. We had an IDR meeting on March 14th with both towns. And during that IDR meeting, both towns engaged the services of Art Allen from Ecotech to review the resource area boundaries that were eventually going to be the subject of this notice of intent application. So on April 2nd, we met Mr. Allen on the property, and we were able to walk all of the resource areas on the eastern portion of the site. Mr. Allen did not look at any of the resource areas on the western side of the ponded area of Summit Brook. But we did make some changes to a few of the flags. And what Art asked us to do in the plan set is keep those old flag locations on the plan set, just so he and the commissions could both see what was moved. We did that. We revised the plan set, and we received a letter from Mr. Allen on June 3rd saying that the revised plans dated April 22nd accurately depict all of the revised wetland locations. And as John mentioned, we're fully aware that the Shrewsbury wetland bylaw and regulations is much more stringent than the State Wetlands Protection Act regulations. And efforts were made to keep all of the activities outside of the 15-foot no disturb, all of the structures outside of the 30-foot no build. And we're really not pushing the envelope on those setbacks. In most cases, the structures are well outside the 30, and the disturbance is well outside the 15. That's basically it as far as the existing conditions go.
Yep, I can pick it back up from there. Greg, thank you. And this is just to show context on that plan. This is just the building outline that we had on there, so everyone could kind of gauge the site plan versus the existing conditions here. Okay, so obviously a critical component to a development like this is the stormwater system, and we've taken lots of steps to make sure that this system complies with all of the state and local regulations, and we've met all 10 state standards that are listed here, and the town of Shrewsbury has a higher level standard for stormwater, specifically water quality treatment. So the town requires 90% removal of total suspended solids versus 80% that the state requires, and requires treatment of total phosphorus. And in our plan accomplishes that. And this is an image here that shows all the different stormwater best management practices that we have throughout the site. We have, I believe it's 13 different either infiltration basins, subsurface detention, infiltration systems, some detention systems, and a bioretention area. And we were very strategic where we put our stormwater. These larger light blue areas along the western portion of the site, although they're in Grafton, I think are important to mention from a holistic stormwater standpoint. That's where we found the best infiltrating soils in that general area. we found nice gravelly, sandy material down there. So we wanted to site our stormwater basins to the extent we could in those areas to get as much recharge and water quality treatment as we could. The reason that we're using some of these detention basins, they're in more of the darker blue, it would be because the soils are not as conducive in that area for infiltration. And we are, following low impact development techniques here by spreading out our stormwater systems and not just having one large centralized, quote unquote, centralized stormwater system. Right. So we're really trying to treat and infiltrate and discharge much closer to the source of stormwater. And with any good stormwater system, there's a treatment drain, right, to accomplish the water quality treatment that we need. And this is a typical system that we're using on site here. And in some cases, it's even more robust. But we have, street sweeping. There'll be a street sweeping program. The stormwater will be captured in deep sump hooded catch basins. So that'll be essentially the first line of defense to capture sediment. The hood will capture any oils and greases that may be present in the catch basin. And then there'll be a proprietary water quality unit, so a higher level of PSS treatment. And the reason one of the reasons we're doing that is because we want to have at least 44% pre-treatment before we discharge to our infiltration basins. And that's because we're classified as a land use with higher potential pollutant loading due to the number of traffic trips per day. So after the stormwater is cleaned through the water quality unit, it would discharge into an infiltration basin, or as you saw in the last slide, a detention basin or rain garden. But for the most part, most of the stormwater is going through the infiltration basins. A large majority of water will infiltrate, which is how we're getting our water quality volume and recharge volume to meet those standards. But what does not infiltrate will overflow through an outlet control structure at a controlled rate and be discharged through a level spreader, which is, there'll be a head wall with a depression stabilized with riprap, and then there'll be a curb here so that it spreads the flow out in a nice laminar way, so we're not getting a point discharge causing erosion. So I pointed out before that this is a zoom in of that area where I pointed out before we have the maintenance building in the wash tunnel in our fueling area. And these, colorful lines here represent, this purple is the wetland line, and the orange being the no disturb, and the
Actually, the purple's the no disturb.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg. Yep, the black is the wetland. A lot of lines here. The black is the wetland. The purple is the no disturb, the 15-foot no disturb. The orange is the 30-foot no build, and the green is the 100-foot buffer. So importantly to note that this area is outside of the 100-foot buffer. And this is a quick overlay of our drainage and stormwater system here and sewer system as well. And I wanted to just specifically point out that, we do have the fueling island, right? So there'll be a diesel tank, and then some of these will be compressed natural gas. We have all of the stormwater catch basins. Again, we'll have those deep sumps with hoods. And then we've included also an oil water separator, a separate oil water separator, larger structure than just the catch basins, which will flow through a water quality unit and then into a forebay and then to that detention basin. So there'll be lots of safeguards and treatment for this area in particular. The wash tunnel, I want to point out that none of the water from the wash tunnel will go to the storm. It's not like when you're washing your car out in the driveway, which that may or may not be getting into like the storm system. This is a much more deliberate system. There is a recirculation component to this, so it's to conserve water to the extent we can. So water from the wash tunnel goes through a clarifying vault, is recirculated and reused, and then any overflow from that goes through this brown symbol here is an oil water separator to again further treat water, and then that goes into the sanitary and not the stormwater system. So this green line here is the sanitary, which will be be a pump station and then ultimately discharged into the municipal system, which is being coordinated with the appropriate agencies. Okay, we have an erosion control and prevention plan. In the plan set, there's obviously much more detail on all these items here, but I wanted to point this out specifically, because it is a large site, and we want to show that we've taken a lot of consideration to prevent and control erosion. The blue line around the site will be a robust wire-backed silt fence and silt sock. The orange is representative of redundant rows of compost filter tubes and silt socks throughout the site. The contractor will also be responsible for all these items here that we've listed below, maintaining natural buffers to the extent we can, sediment track out pads, dust control, and probably most importantly is active prevention of erosion in sediment movement via temporary seeding, the use of mulch and straw, jute netting, scarifying, and there'll certainly be multiple temporary basins throughout the site. All of this will be permitted through the NIPD's EPA construction general permit. There'll be a SWIP developed, and there'll be weekly inspections of all these items as well. And this is our a few items from our long-term operation and maintenance program, which is outlined in much more detail in our stormwater report. And I realize that you can't read all this text on here, and the point wasn't to read all these verbatim. The point was more to show a bit of a taste for what is in that long-term O&M plan for the stormwater system, because the stormwater system, going forward, years from now is only as good as how well it's maintained, and there is a very detailed plan to do that. And there is, activities and frequency dictated for all the items I showed before in the treatment train for street sweeping, how often to clean out the catch basins, how often to clean out the water quality units, how often to mow the basins and clean those out, things like that. So that will all be, documented as well. Okay, and I'm going to turn it back over to Greg to close out the presentation and talk about some of our planting schemes.
Thanks, John. So yeah, I think you can get the theme here. Doing our best to stay outside of everybody's jurisdiction. And with the exception of one discrete location in Grafton, which is a bylaw jurisdictional land subject to flooding, most of the project is outside the buffer zone. Where it's not outside the buffer zone, it complies with the no disturb and no build zone setbacks in both towns. There's no alteration proposed within floodplain. There's no alteration proposed within riverfront area. There's no alteration proposed with any state jurisdictional resource areas. But with that said, there is some land clearing, there is some activity in the buffer zone. So we did want to try to put back plants where we could and take advantage of basically any area that we could either seed with a native seed mix or put in a native tree or a native shrub species. So you'll see, I know you've got a very, very big plan set before you, but once you have a chance to digest that plan set, I think you'll see that there is a planting plan, which looks a lot like this one, and it does have a lot more details about what's going on. But all of the species are native. Most of them are drought-tolerant plants. We're looking at red maple, sweet gum, tulip tree, river birch, white pine, bayberry, witch hazel. And then we've got 3 different seed mixes. I don't know if your commission has any experience with Ernst out of Pennsylvania, but we've been getting all our seed mixes from them. They do a really nice job, and they can tailor them to our region and our area. So we've used these seed mixes at another project up in North Andover, all 3 of these meadow mixes. We've got Meadow Mix A, Meadow Mix B, and Meadow Mix C. They all did really well. So Meadow Mix A is mostly native grasses, sedges, and rushes. So that seed mix would be applied to most of the stormwater management areas. We want to keep them free of woody growth, but we do want to get vegetated cover, and primarily native species is preferred. Meadow Mix B, it's a steep slope mix that contains, again, mostly grass species, but it also has some black-eyed Susan, wild bergamot, tall white beard tongue, and purple top, which again do well in this area. They should do well on these slopes. And I should point out that there's no slope within the buffer zone that's steeper than 3 to 1. People will tell you that they can maintain and mow a 2 to 1 slope. It's true, but 3 to 1 is better. And we're not proposing anything steeper than that in the buffer zone. There is, I know I keep saying buffer zone, but there is one spot where we do cut into some rock, and that's a stabilized rock face that will be slightly steeper than 3 to 1. But that's well outside the buffer zone. Meadow Mix C is a native upland wildlife forage and cover mix. Contains blue stem, switchgrass, black-eyed Susan, tick trefoil, milkweed, wild bergamot again. So I think all of these species will do well. These seed mixes are designed to take hold quickly, and again, cover the slopes and other areas that can be vegetated with a dense herbaceous cover. I think that's it as far as the planting plan goes.
Yep, and that, concludes the formal presentation, and we'd love to, answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Diane, do you have any questions?
No, I need to wait to have questions.
Okay. Martha?
Can you talk about the obligate species that you found in the vernal pools?
I'd be happy to. So we found both wood frogs and spotted salamanders, and most of them showed up, let me see here, just before our inspection on March 28th. So we did go out to the site on 4 occasions to check these areas out. We went out on March 14th. I went out right after the RDR meetings in both towns. Then I went out again on March 28th, and that's when I found all sorts of stuff. Like I mentioned, spotted salamanders and wood frogs. We went back on April 2nd and again on April 26th. And you're probably wondering why we kept going. We kept going because there was a isolated area in Grafton that we needed to keep an eye on, because we hadn't seen anything in that leading up to the 28th. And we didn't end up finding anything on the 2nd or the 26th. We were there on the 2nd with Mr. Allen from Ecotech. I know you don't want to probably talk about Grafton, but I think it's worth mentioning that we don't think it has a long enough hydro period to function as vernal pool habitat. It's very shallow, seems to drain pretty quick. But the pools in Shrewsbury did have enough evidence to make them certifiable.
Great, thank you. And are you familiar with the life cycle of those organisms, the wood frogs and the spotted salamanders, and the requirement for the adult stages to have upland habitat that is contiguous and associated with the vernal pools where they breed?
I am.
Okay. So I would just voice that going forward, that's a particular concern of mine that I'll be looking for in these plans. And I appreciate working, putting the site first and then working the building into it. And I wonder if you could indicate, I'm having a little trouble orienting myself. If you could indicate where the power line right-of-way is.
Sure. So it runs parallel with the long portion of the building. Yep, right where that little hand's going.
Okay.
And just to the top right of the screen, you can see the substation there. That's the substation that you can see when you're driving down Centec. If you look to the right before you get to the right turn onto Centennial.
Okay. And you'll also appreciate the site is there is an osprey nest in the wetlands.
Yes.
It has been active, and a great heron, great blue herons use the wetlands as well. So it's a very rich area, and I'm gonna put forth a model that maybe you're not familiar with, but there's a company called MathWorks out in Natick, and they have done a very nice job of integrating their facility with the surrounding natural area, and I know that it would be beneficial for the employees and the people who use this facility to have opportunities to appreciate the wildlife as well. So that's a kind of big picture philosophy that's not strictly regulated to wetlands, the bylaws that we have, but something that I think is echoed in the philosophy of this commission. That would be nice to put into the mix going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris?
So, yeah, I appreciate, the attempts to comply with our new bylaws. I appreciate that. It's a complicated site. There's, 7 parcels and, 2 different towns you're working with. You've got fueling, washing bays, and maintenance buildings all squarely between the vernal pools on the Shrewsbury side. I'll just speak to Shrewsbury. That's, very complicated. We have a lot of detail here. This is probably one of the thickest plans we've seen. I wanted to get a chance to look at the lighting plan. I didn't really get a chance to do that yet, so I'd like to look at that because I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the truck traffic, and I don't know if any thought was given to 6 ppd quinone, the compound that breaks down from tires. It sounds like you've thought about the stormwater runoff from the driveways and parking area, but I'm not sure how it addresses that. So some more things I want to read up on. That's all.
What's that? Malaya?
Kind of coming back to what Martha was saying, it does look like there are some opportunities to kind of connect some of those wetland spaces to upland spaces, especially south of the maintenance and trucky maintenance area thing. And we have seen very recently that some of our species have been having trouble crossing some of our rather large commercial areas. So it might be a good consideration to incorporate some possible, obviously we can't tell the turtles where they need to go, but kind of encouraging them and incorporating some crossings for them. Especially, I know there's a kind of a thin part of the road that connects the isolated wetland in Shrewsbury to that bordering vegetated wetland to the north of the site. That might be a good opportunity to incorporate some crossings. And then, of course, south of that maintenance area where the detention basin will be, it looks like it stays pretty green, so there might be some space to kind of lead them from one wetland to the next and give them some upland area in between. I don't know if I had any other questions. Yeah, I think that was my big one. If we could, yeah, if there were some efforts made to include some critter crossings, that would be phenomenal.
Okay, I have a question. Have we had a chance to go over the peer review letter? Have we
I
received that?
don't know if we have. I think a lot of Art's comments were, minor adjustments of the wetland flags. Probably their wetland scientists can speak a little more to any
So-
adjustments that were created.
So we're waiting for that letter as well?
There is one in there.
Yeah, he provided an initial comment letter, and the revisions have been reflected, from his comment letter in the plans
Okay.
already, so.
And
Yeah,
how
Mr.
about,
Chairman, it looks like June 3rd was the letter from Ecotech from Art Allen.
thank you. And then has the town had a chance to look at the stormwater, all the stormwater,
I'm not sure. I'd have to check in with Vincent. Yeah, because this is such a substantial project. I imagine it'll be a thorough review by Vincent.
I think we should look thoroughly at the area around the maintenance building, the car wash, and the fuel
Yes,
areas.
definitely ensuring that no schmuck from that area is entering any of the wetlands, would definitely be a priority.
Okay.
And are we
And
thinking
I
of
can weigh in on the stormwater peer review, if
Fuel
if
storage?
you don't mind.
snow?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, yes.
Yeah, so Graves Engineering is performing a peer review of the stormwater. And I think it's being done on behalf of the planning board. We got word from them earlier this week that they're wrapping up their peer review. They'll be, issuing their letter either end of this week or early next week.
Okay.
You want to ask about that?
Martha, did you have a question?
I did. Are you factoring in space for snow storage?
Yes, we have. And we didn't present on that specifically, but there are multiple areas throughout the site, and they are labeled in the plans. If you look on the site plans, a lot of it is in the green space throughout. We did, make some dedicated snow storage areas where we had some flat space. We can certainly get into that in more detail, the next meeting if you're interested.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Chris, do you have a
While we're on the subject of storage, and the detail might be in here, I apologize if I haven't seen it yet. Fuel storage, is it going to be above-ground tanks, underground tanks?
Yep, so there'll be above ground tank. It'll be one above ground tank there'll be a diesel tank. It'll be a secondary containment tank, so meeting the requirements of the state fire marshal. There'll also be a curb around it, containment curb around it. And as I mentioned before too, it's, all that, if there was a spill, we'll go through the oil water separator. There is a robust spill prevention and containment and countermeasure plan for that. There are folks that are trained on site. There's spill kits right there at the source. So all the proper measures and permitting will be in place for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions here? Any questions from the audience? I have one. Did you, and it's probably in here, but did you include like a construction sequencing plan on how you're going to construct this large project?
Yeah, in the stormwater report, we have a section on construction sequencing.
And how are you going, just kind of a quick synopsis, you start, obviously starting at Centec and working your way into a point, and then how you're gonna stabilize it as you go, or?
Yeah, and I guess in high level terms, without getting into too much detail, the construction access will be from Centec. We'll be coming in through there. There'll be a staging area set up. There's some, the majority of the flattest area essentially is kind of in the middle of this long wing here. So we'll be setting up some staging there, which is, well outside of the buffer zones. And then we'll be, proceeding from there, obviously setting up erosion controls first and foremost, which will be inspected by both commissions for both towns, and then proceeding from there.
Okay. So I guess we ask for a continuance for our next meeting, which probably will be July 16th.
Yes, July, wait, is that correct?
Is that what
Yes,
you're?
it will be July
you're-
16th.
Is that what you're asking for?
Yes.
I didn't know if you're, I know in email we had discussed the potential of, so they're also planning to meet with Grafton tonight. Their meeting for them starts at 8:30. So they'd probably like to scooch in a minute. Wow, why am I so loud? Until September, Grafton and Shrewsbury meet on the same night. In September, Grafton has 2 meetings. Well, we are maintain our one. I don't know if the commission has any interest in scheduling a second public meeting that would stagger so that the applicants would have the opportunity to present without a time crunch, or if we just like keeping them short and sweet and want that time crunch.
Well, I think after you guys have a chance to review what has been presented, if there's the need for everybody to come here and meet and have a special meeting, fine. But if not, I mean, this seems to be working fine. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I'm okay either way.
Yeah,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm okay coordinating
Okay.
to kind of.
that's fine.
Keep them later, us
Mhm.
earlier.
Yep.
Whatever we need to do to
Yep.
give them some distance, but yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll see you July 16th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
These are heavy.
July 17th.
July 16th, Tuesday.
Play with it.
Going.
I can barely roll it.
Did they, Elia, did they get a DEP number?
They have not received a DEP number at this time.
Okay.
That's close. Yeah. Phonetically correct.
You ready?
We are ready.
Okay. We have a new public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of general laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations, that Helen Lynn, 17 Granite Street, Unit 2, Worcester, Mass., has filed a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home and associated site work at 106 Reservoir Street, Lot B.
Evening, Board. How are you? I'm here, Jim Brown with Brown & Brown Real Estate, John Plifka with McCarty Consulting out of Leominster, and we have Helen Lynn sitting behind. Basically, Helen owns Imperial Buffet in Shrewsbury. She wants to move into town. We've been looking for a property for several years for her. We identified 106 Reservoir Street, the antique, before the reservoir on the right. It was purchased in the fall with an approved A&R lot, which is what we're talking about tonight. And I'm basically going to have John present, the engineering side. But I'm brought in, I'm going to consult with Helen through the process. I have vast experience dealing with wetlands, stormwater plans, and such, and I'm going to assist Helen in the construction of the home with the help of McCarty. So.
All right, so yeah, thank you, Jim. So, John Plifka from McCarty Engineering. As Jim said, the property was recently subdivided through the A&R process, so tonight we are proposing the construction of a single-family home and some associated site improvements. Along with those site improvements, there's actually going to be 2 driveways, one to serve the proposed home and one to serve the existing. So we are proposing 2 rain gardens located adjacent to each driveway, designed and approved in accordance with the Shrewsbury stormwater bylaws. We have received a stormwater permit from the DPW on that. All proposed improvements are at a minimum 50 feet from the buffer zone. We're proposing very minimal tree clearing, and I guess just one other point, we did receive some comments from DEP, which we responded to accordingly. And I guess just the biggest one was that we originally didn't realize Rawson Hill buffer zone was associated with the property. Once it was brought to our attention, we had our wetland scientists go out there, flag the annual high water mark, and the surveyors grabbed it so we could add the additional buffer zones. So that's about all I have, so I'd be happy to answer questions you might have.
Diane?
So how long is this driveway going to the proposed 4-bedroom home?
I don't know the exact dimension off the top of my head. It's a 20 scale plan, so I'd say it's probably,
So right now, there's an easement across the existing home if you're looking at the property to the right. And to ease the burden on the neighbor, we'd have to go before the town to put two homes on one drive. That's why we're proposing 2 separate driveways. Doesn't make sense to come across like that. We'd rather separate out the properties, and then each individual owner can deal with their own snow plowing and such, and maintenance. And the original easement only states 1 house, and now it would be 2 houses on an easement, so.
Okay, thank you.
Martha?
Do you have a planting plan for the rain gardens?
yes, if you saw page 2 of that plan set, there's a detail of each rain garden calling out plants.
And will the driveways, how will they be finished?
They'll be paved.
I'm sorry?
They'll be paved, about paved, yeah.
Okay. I'm all set, thank you.
Can you speak to the riverfront buffer areas and the impacts that the crossings and whatnot are going to have on them?
Sure.
How much disturbance there is?
Yeah, so to start off, right, this is all previously developed area. This is all within a lawn area that's been previously developed. So we are in accordance with the general conditions of this Riverfront Protection Act. It's very minimal on the pavement itself. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I could definitely get that to you.
So maybe when you come back at the next meeting, you can tell us how much disturbed pre and post?
Oh, it was included as part of our stormwater report.
Okay. So maybe when you can come back to this meeting, you can explain it to us then in greater detail, so we can just understand how much was disturbed, how much is going to be replaced with pervious, impervious, all of that, okay? Okay.
Yeah, well, so I guess with the whole area is disturbed to begin with, correct? The whole lawn area, as you can see, that the existing tree line.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not disturbing any. There's no new disturbance, so
So
to speak.
there's more impervious.
There's more impervious, but we're
So we need to know the numbers in
pre
square-
versus post.
in the square footage that is permanently versus what was previous and what is now.
Yeah,
You're allowed a certain square footage of disturbance within that riverfront, correct?
yes, well, it's all previously disturbed within the lawn area. See that existing tree line, right? That is all previously disturbed. So we're not disturbing any more.
So you're not cutting any more trees, you're not doing any...
Not within the riverfront, no.
Not within the 200-foot riverfront buffer. It shows it on the plan. It looks like the house is going to be, the existing house is in it, and then you're
That's-
coming across to the new driveway that's in it, that was previously lawn and trees. Now it's going to be hardened surface. So if you could come back and give us those calculations, it would be probably appreciated.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's been somewhat of an economic hardship for Helen because the plan was originally to sell the antique as soon as we could put that driveway in. would it be possible to get the approval to put that one driveway in for the antique and wait on the new construction plan?
Yeah, but it's still in the riverfront.
Okay.
We need to know exactly what is being disturbed and what isn't.
So it was provided, if you, impervious material is the biggest concern, if I understand correctly. That was included within the stormwater report, so it has been provided. I unfortunately, I apologize, I don't know that
Okay.
number off the
And
top
neither
of my
do,
head.
and neither do I, so.
Correct, understand.
Chris, do you have anything?
No additional questions, no.
Could I could probably give it to you if I could look at that stormwater report.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
can flip through a little faster than I can.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions?
Somebody in the back.
Sir, can you come up and speak at the microphone?
Please give your name and address before speaking.
Hi, my name is Michael LaRosa. I'm the abutting property at 102, so looking forward to meeting you guys, at least tonight, to say hello. I had some questions on the property. For one, the biggest issue or question I have is about management of water. So water table's extremely high on that on those properties. The most water is on the back left, I guess, so the corner of my property in the basement that is closest to the end of the driveway and the proposed house is the spot where the majority of all water comes in. It's where the sump pump comes and runs consistently. So adding structure and adding a driveway around that property line on that side would be a major concern for us as, just what happens with more water and how's that managed to, ease the burden of what's already there for a lot of water and make sure that it doesn't create additional problems for us as, new structure and new driveways and stuff come in. If there's, additional issues that come down the road for us, right? And making sure that that's not something that we need to be concerned about down the road. So I guess if there's a question, I know you mentioned that there's detailed plans. I reviewed them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what's in them to
Sure.
the extent you do. So some help there in understanding kind of what, how we can be assured that it won't disrupt, our property.
Right, so, thank you. So the biggest thing, right, when we look at stormwater, it's your post-peak existing versus proposed. So anytime you're adding impervious area, you have to prove that within the stormwater event that your flow posed is less or equal to your existing. So that's what we have provided within our stormwater management plan, which included our pea stone diaphragm, the rain garden, and then the entire roof of the house is going to be treated by a dry well. So all impervious material that's being proposed on site has been accounted for.
Impervious material, I apologize.
No. So just think that can't absorb water, right? So that's your pavements, that's your rooftop.
Mhm.
So that's all been accounted for within our drainage design in this report.
And is the drainage, does it drain off to the side of the property? Does it
So,
drain kind of back?
Off the
back of property?
driveway, there's the rain gardens located at the base. So it's all directed through that, right? That's kind of where we get our TSS removal and the infiltration we need on that, and it slows down the rate of everything. So it's directed and it's graded, so everything goes down to the low point and then directed to the rain gardens.
And how deep are the rain guards now?
The rain gardens they're about, is it 2 footers? They're about 2 feet deep.
Okay. There's again,
No,
I'm not the
feel-
expert. I'm not the
feel
expert
free.
on this. I just know it's a significant concern because there's water constantly. I mean, the sump pump runs through July into August, and maybe
Sure.
we get 60 days maybe without it. So there's just a lot of water on that property. So just as long, we just, like I said, our biggest concern is if it creates more water problems for us, especially with the proximity of driveway structure to the house, which I know is within guidelines, but that's a concern for us.
Right, and just to kind of alleviate your concern, everything's going downhill,
Back,
right?
yeah.
So it's gonna go towards the road and then towards the rain garden, so.
Okay.
I'm not sure which house, so you're right to
I'm
the
102.
left.
I'm just to the right of
Yep.
the property, the one with
So,
the easement on the driveway.
It's on the opposite side of the driveway, or
Okay.
the opposite.
Yeah, he's to the. if you're
It's on
looking
the
at it to
inside,
Yes,
closer to 106, yeah.
yes.
Okay. The other question would be that, based on the aerial view here, I know you'd mentioned minimal tree removal. Is that big old that old tree, I'm not sure what it is, kind of in the middle there, does that get removed?
Yeah, that's kind of right where the driveway's going. I might have misspoke, the minimal clearing within the buffer zone. A couple trees outside of the jurisdiction that might have to go.
That's too bad. That's a beautiful old tree. The driveway easement, I understand it's for a single property. Is there a plan for,
To remove it?
if it's unnecessary, is part of the plan to remove it? And
So during the construction of the new driveway, that will be used, but then it's gonna be taken up, loamed and hydroseeded.
Okay.
So brought back to, so it'll be part of your front lawn.
Okay, thank you. The other thing was, just, and maybe this isn't for this meeting, and maybe Helen, this is maybe for you and I to talk about afterwards, but it's extremely overgrown. Both properties, 106 and what would be 104, extremely overgrown at the moment.
In the back or her part?
The entirety of both parcels.
The lawn, you mean, needs to be moved?
Lawns and, yeah, it's,
Okay.
I guess what Shrewsbury would call nuisance, but I don't want to use that, it's a tough word. Maintained would be great.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll talk to Helen about it.
those are my concerns. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the plans. You show alongside the driveway. I'm not sure what they are, if that's your pea stone diaphragm, if that's a retaining wall. What is that?
That is the pea stone diaphragm.
That's the so the driveway would be sloped to drain into that channel?
That's correct. Yep. It's all directed to hit the pea stone diaphragm and then directed towards the rain.
So it doesn't sheet across reservoir into the river's protection?
Right, or down the hill into Mr. LaRosa's house.
Right,
Correct.
All right. All right, thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Did you have the impervious material?
Yep. So, do you only have one copy of the, or did we give you two of those?
And not that it really matters to conservation, I'm actually building this house on High Street. It'll actually fit in nicely to the neighborhood. It's a nice looking colonial. A little more of a craftsman style. So,
Good.
So existing on site, where 4,290 square feet of impervious material. And then under the proposed, we are, sorry, we have it broken up here. I just gotta.
does the board have a preference on cement chambers or Caltech? Do you guys, not really?
I think that's engineering.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, good God, why is it so loud?
Mike?
Yeah, you could inquire with our stormwater
Okay.
coordinator. He would have a better preference.
So, and then under the proposed conditions, we're right about 9,600
On the entire site?
for both properties.
Okay.
Total, yes.
So
106 as a whole.
So almost more than double.
Yeah, double. So my question relates to the riverfront, because you're putting two driveways in the riverfront where there was only one. So that's where I'm asking, what is the disturbance within the riverfront area? And you're only allowed so much.
This has been previously developed, so.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I need to know, we need to know the
That was
number.
one of DEP's comments, which you responded to. So since it was previously disturbed, we are in compliance
But
with that.
that area was not disturbed, because there was no hardened surface in that area. So that's where the board comes into, that's why we're asking the question. So we need to know that information. Okay?
Sure, no, that was just our response to DEP. They asked us how we were in compliance with it, since it was previously developed under the section of the Wetland Protection Act. We felt that we were in compliance.
Okay.
This may, if I may, this may hinge on the definition of develop. Does develop mean to
I think that's
add
been our-
impervious surface and structures? Or does it mean to disturb an
Yeah,
existing
disturbance of any
natural
kind,
area
yeah.
and put another non-natural area on it that's
looks-
not built?
It looks like the majority of the driveway that exists now is in the riverfront area, correct?
Yes.
So it might actually work to your advantage if you did that calculation, because I don't know if this equals the same as this.
Right.
Right.
So you're
We're s-
doubling the disturbance.
So, yeah, we're specifically referencing
Riverfront.
impervious disturbance also.
Okay.
So disturbance overall, obviously grassed area is not native natural vegetation. We are specifically asking about the impervious addition.
And just so we're clear, right? Two separate, right? The impervious within the riverfront, and then the impervious within the wetland buffer zone? Is that what you're asking for?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And so there's no limit on impervious area within a bordering vegetated wetland buffer zone. You just have to be obviously outside of the 30-foot, structure zone,
Which we are.
which you are. So that is met. The BVW is A-okay. You are, I think you're good there. You are, the house is entirely outside of that.
Right.
Yeah, it just cuts into the 50-foot.
Yeah, we
And then
made
even
the house smaller to fit.
And the ECB is also outside of those, which we appreciate seeing, not seeing additional yard space created. The problem is, although the existing riverfront area has been disturbed with lawn area, you are proposing to disturb it with an impervious surface, which is different, in a lawn area, even if it's not a bunch of woods, it's still accepting that rainwater, it's still contributing to that groundwater.
And can we subtract the existing driveway that we're gonna take out, loam and hydroseed? Is that a negative number that we can subtract? Because that will now
Yes,
be
exactly.
pervious.
So it's an interesting,
Because it's in the river's protection area, and it's now gonna be pervious.
It's being disturbed, but yeah.
yeah.
Give us the calculations, and then, so we can review
get the
them
calculations.
in-house, and then we can make sure we're in compliance.
Okay.
That's all.
Also, I don't know if it's in the cards, but maybe a pervious driveway would be a good idea.
I could put a pervious driveway in the antique, I mean, that's kind of.
Last thing, the revised WPA form, that should have it on there.
Okay, so let me see if I have, sorry, so many folders to do. Okay. So they do have a final proposed alteration of riverfront area, 6,724 feet.
How much?
6,724 feet.
Well, what does the regulation say? Can't exceed 5,000?
Oh, and then, so the total area of riverfront on the site is 16,330. So it'll be 6,724 or of 16,000. So it's
It's
five,
about 30%.
it's 5,000 square feet generally, or 10% of the approved of the
So we need to look at that number.
property. Yeah.
So it's the board's position that developed isn't considered. Okay, all right.
All right. But if I change to a pervious driveway, that would.
You're
lower
you're over the allowed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So if you give that information back to Leah before our next meeting, so she can review it and we're good, I mean, that will help get things rolling, okay?
All right, appreciate it, thank you.
So we'll see you back July 16th. Okay, so this is me.
Yep, I'm done.
Okay, you actually have that plan set in front of you.
All right, we have a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by 160 Holden Street LLC and GFI Partners LLC 133 Pearl Street, Suite 300, Boston, for the construction of 2 warehouse buildings, associated drives, loading docks and parking areas, and associated site work at 142 Clinton Street. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Aaliyah,
Yeah,
do I have the ability to share the screen?
that's a great question. Are you in the meeting?
I didn't get a link for the meeting.
Oh, okay, let me,
I could also, I emailed you the presentation. If
You are
you'd rather
correct.
drive, it's
let
up to
me,
you.
I will, I am happy to drive. Let me see if I can, there she is. Look at her. Okay.
I also have it on a USB, whatever's easiest.
I have it right here in email. It pulled up just quick, just
Okay.
nicely. So let me share this tab instead. There you go.
Thank you. You want to start?
Sure. Good evening. Rich Kirby from LEC Environmental Consultants. With me tonight, project engineer Doug Harnett from High Point Engineering, and of course, Haley Palazzola representing the applicant. The commission recalls we filed this notice of intent back in January for the 2 warehouses and associated infrastructure on a plot of land that's to be subdivided from the current Worcester Sand and Stone property. Fast forward to April 5th, we got our DEP comments from the Central Regional Office. We also had in April our second engineering review response to comments that Doug's team put together. Graves Engineering, of course, is the peer reviewer on behalf of the planning board. On 4/16, mid-April, we had our last conservation hearing. And despite our efforts to mitigate our way into a waiver request, the commission made it pretty clear that they didn't want to see any work within 15 feet of the wetlands and any structures within 30 feet of the wetlands. So since then, we took those comments to heart. We modified the plans to get all work outside of the 15-foot, all structures outside of the 30-foot. Doug's going to go over that in a couple of minutes to show you how we accomplished that. End of April, we received our third engineering peer review letter. Two minor comments from that Graves Engineering letter that need to be addressed to complete their review. All this time we've been going to the planning board, of course, and going back and forth with them. Finally, on June 4th, we got our final engineering peer review letter. No more comments. We have a clean bill of health from the planning board peer review on engineering stormwater comments. We are continuing that hearing to July, though. And then finally, this month, earlier, we submitted our reduced build alternative plans. We also provided our response to the DEP comments, which were largely stormwater related. And then today, we submitted our response to comments to our Allen's comment email, which in large part had to do with his review of the wetland delineation and a couple of minor modifications that we'll overview with you tonight. So that's where we are. The next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Doug. He's going to talk about how we modified the program to accommodate the Commission's 15-foot no disturb and 30-foot no structure bylaw requirements.
Thank you, Rich. The Commission's familiar, obviously, with the site plan as you had reviewed it previously back in April. And as Rich had said, we took it to heart, the Commission's concerns about the activities proposed in those local bylaw buffer areas. The team went back to the plan, and to make it rather simple to understand how the site plan was actually modified, I'm going to point you to the lower building left to the lower area. We ended up removing an entire bay of the building. Those bays are 54 feet in depth by the total width of the building, which allowed us to pull the wall and the associated grading at the toe of the wall further up the plan, but also allowed us to actually slide the site plan a little further down plan or east. And what that allows us to do is get a little more separation from the isolated wetland area that's up in front of the property along Clinton Street. Secondly, on building 200 on the right-hand side, we kept the building position where it was originally proposed, but we've removed about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet of building footprint in that area and adjusted the column grids accordingly to make the building work architecturally. So in essence, what we did is we removed about 25,343 square feet of building 100 and 5,880 square feet of building 200, for a total of 31,223 square feet of building reduction. In addition, by virtue of shrinking the buildings and the associated impervious areas to accommodate those adjacencies to the buildings, we were able to reduce another 30,000 square feet plus or minus of impervious area. So the net benefit is as follows. We have 60,000 plus square foot reduction in impervious area. The applicant has agreed not to modify the stormwater management design in its current form as it relates to mitigation for peak rate of runoff, infiltration of stormwater for the benefit of the underlying aquifer. All the best management practices that were originally proposed are all fully in place and functional as if the plan will be built in terms of its original proposal, in terms of its size. Secondly, by doing that, we're able to locate all the retaining walls beyond 30 foot. I think we ended up keeping it like 33 to 34 as a placeholder to allow a little bit of buffer to those wetland areas. And that includes the adjusted areas that Rich was talking about, that Art Allen had made some minor recommendations for wetland line adjustments along that east side of the site. So in general, if you look up, if you can pan up a little bit so we can look at the other side of the site, we did mention about the shifting of the parking lot. That takes a little bit of distance off of the retaining wall and the other wetland area along Clinton Street, but also allowed us to shift the center driveway to the north, which is planned right. That gave us some additional separation from the driveway shoulder grading. As you saw the site out there, it's a lot of riprap dumped along that slope condition there, and so we were able to get that away from there so that we can soften up the buffer zone in that location and take that activity out of the 15 foot and remove the retaining walls from the 30-foot area. Next slide, please. It might be difficult to read. Obviously, this is a line work plan. All the detailed information is in the plan set that was submitted. But what this plan really demonstrates is, in general, the plan does not change from a grading perspective as it relates to the buildings and the adjacent truck courts and the adjacent access driveways, the parking areas, and so forth. It's really just shrunk a bit to meet the objectives raised by the commission at the last meeting. Rich, do you want to go through the individual adjustments?
Sure. So I was out with Art a couple of times to review the wetland delineation. There were no changes to the wetland boundary along Clinton Street. The changes that occurred were along the eastern edge of the project on the wetland boundary that borders Newton Pond. There were basically 4 areas that we adjusted or modified, and the next 2 slides sort of zoom into those 4 areas. The first area is on the first 2 areas on the left-hand side, which are right there. So we added a wetland flag to the left of the basin. We added another wetland flag to the right of the basin. And then the next slide, there were a series of flags that were missing from when I was out there with Art, so he wanted those reestablished. I went out there with a surveyor. We found most of the knots of the old flags, and we refreshed those, and the surveyors, got new points on the locations to make sure that they were accurate. So all those flags were refreshed. I was out there with Art. He reviewed them. He was fine with them. And then finally, the last slide shows an extension of the bordering vegetated wetland where we have sort of this finger-like projection on the left. And then we also found an isolated wetland to the right there that we had flagged that also had some old logs in it. Looks like there's been some logs in there for a while. And so Art had suggested in his comments, which we replied to today, that those logs be removed. And of course, the applicant's open to a special condition requiring the removal of those logs. They're really just kind of on the edge and need to be pulled out. There's vegetation growing through them, silky dogwood mostly. So those were the flag changes. And the next slide goes through the buffer zone vegetation. So as the commission knows, we talked about doing some buffer zone enhancement and buffer zone restoration as mitigation for our work in the 15 and 30-foot buffer zones. Since we have pulled all of the work outside of those zones, we've reworked our mitigation plan. And we feel now that the mitigation plan is better suited for the project as it's currently proposed. It's more commensurate with the scope of the work in the buffer zone. So what we're doing is, no longer do we have a 9,000 square foot enhancement area. That meadow will be left alone and be allowed to go through its successional process on its own. That sort of boomerang shape there in the middle that you see between the two buildings, that was where our 20,000 square foot buffer zone restoration area was, and we had proposed loam and seed, some sapling trees and shrubs. What we did was we kind of zoomed out, if you will, and looked at the project as a whole and said, okay, beyond our limit of work line, we have a significant amount of land that is currently disturbed. It does not have topsoil. It does not have native vegetation growing in it. So instead of proposing sapling trees and shrubs over a 20,000 square foot area, we are going to add topsoil and seed just over 76,000 square feet of buffer zone. So all of the yellow area that you see on this plan, and there's some at the top too, toward Clinton Street, that will all be top dressed with topsoil that has a minimum organic content. It'll be seeded with native pollinator mixes and that will help establish ground cover plants in those zones. So I think on balance, it's a net benefit. It's commensurate with the scope of the project as we've revised it since the last meeting. The next plan sort of zooms into some of these areas. You can see the yellow versus the green. The green are areas where we'll be doing some grading in the buffer zone, but we're still going to restore that with topsoil and native seed mixtures. We have some shade-tolerant seed mixtures for the areas that are sort of tucked into the woods, such as the land surrounding the stormwater basin. I use the word woods loosely. It's mostly Japanese knotweed and Norway maple and some other things. But just to give you a sense of what we're proposing, and all those numbers are on the plan. The next slide goes into the boomerang shape that had been the location of our 20,000 square foot restoration. It's now sort of incorporated into the overall loam and seed effort that we're proposing. And then the next slide shows another area that beyond the limit of work, currently disturbed, degraded land that we'll be restoring. Finally, the last slide shows the last slide that talks about the buffer zone. This is the land over by the 400 series wetland, which is the wetland that's along Clinton Street. And one of Alan's comments was, hey, there's a stream that flows into that. Can you confirm whether or not it's intermittent or perennial? So we went through that exercise and outlined it in our response to Art's comments. And basically, we looked at the USGS topographic map first. That's where you start. Is the stream shown as intermittent? Is it shown as perennial? Is it not shown at all? In this case, it's not shown at all. So the presumption is that the stream is intermittent. The next step, you go to the USGS Stream Stats program and you run a watershed analysis to see if the watershed is big enough or if it flows a certain cubic feet per second threshold that could trigger a perennial determination. Without getting into too much complexity, the minimum threshold for a stream to be considered perennial, you need a couple of other things, but the minimum threshold is 0.5 square miles, and the contributing watershed to this stream is 0.18, I think it was, square miles. So it's significantly less than that minimum threshold, so we're comfortable the stream is intermittent. The next slide gets into the snow storage.
Yeah, I can speak to this
Yeah,
briefly.
thanks, Doug.
The snow storage was raised at the Conservation Commission meeting back in April. It was also raised by the planning board. We just wanted to demonstrate with this plan, and it's in the packet that was submitted to the commission, that the snow storage areas essentially remained intact. And we were actually able to gain a little more snow storage be west of building 100 by virtue of the parking lot being pulled away a little further from the south access driveway, which is the driveway to the right. All the other snow storage areas remained as they were originally proposed. And as Alea had suggested in a prior meeting, providing no snow storage signage along the isolated wetland along Clinton Street. The commission saw this at the last meeting, so this is just to reiterate our commitment, both on the plans and if required, and as a condition of approval, the installation of those signs.
Yeah, and the next slide actually shows the locations. So I think that's the presentation of the revised plans. We know Art is off till next week, I think it is.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna be able to review until, later this week, I
Yeah.
think.
But like I
we
said,
should
most
have-
of his comments had to do with the flag changes, which he
Yes.
made. He saw them in the field, and now they're reflected on the plan. So
Mhm.
happy to answer any questions or get into more detail.
Diane?
In that isolated wetland, the logs that you were talking about,
Yeah.
were they dumped there? Is that why
I
you
think
wanted
that they were placed there. It's not a conspicuous wetland.
No.
It's not very obvious, and I think it's along the edge of the existing development, and I think they just placed some tree trunks in that zone as a place to put them. I don't think they knew that it was a wetland. We hadn't flagged it as a wetland back in 2019. But Art saw it, and we started looking around and saying, yeah, I guess it does have the soils and vegetation.
Okay.
So I think, we can talk with Art about this too, but I think if we simply pulled those logs out of the wetland, within a year or two, it would sort of take over and revert back to what it was.
Thank you.
Martha?
You may notice that we've brought up in a couple of meetings this evening a concern about habitat continuity for short-legged creatures such as turtles. It's a lesson that we're learning, unfortunately, as large complexes close to wetlands appear in Shrewsbury. So one of the things that we would be concerned about is how would you allow for turtles that are coming up out of the wetlands and need to get across? Are there places where curbs can be cut or reduced, or some sort of ramp area built up,
Or kind of the opposite end of that, enough like fortressiness that they are not enticed to come into the structure and get stuck or
right,
run
that
over
they're
or-
directed
Yeah.
someplace
Yeah, either
else.
directed wicked away or
If we could go
politely
back to that
invited in.
the first colored plan, that's the aerial that shows both buildings. A little further ahead.
The buffer plan.
Buffer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
you got
buffer
it.
plan.
Did I go the
Going-
wrong direction?
going
I'm
down.
sorry.
It's catching up.
Yeah, a little bit, there you go, that one there.
Okay.
So if you remember, when we were out at the site and we parked on Clinton Street, walked through the site, and we got to the eastern edge, and there was a pretty significant berm that went along that roadway, which I think functions as a pretty decent-sized physical barrier, separating the Newton Pond wetlands and associated buffer zones from the degraded portion of the site. If I was a turtle and I was hanging out in Newton Pond, my preferred habitat would be those areas, those naturally vegetated land in that corridor along the pond. I don't think there's a whole lot of habitat being provided by the active sand and gravel operation. I don't think there's a whole lot of reason, I'll get to the nesting habitat in a second, for them to venture over that berm into that land. The soils throughout this area of town are very sandy. It's not just the sand and gravel operation that has sandy soils, but it's all of the land in and around the wetlands, the buffer zones adjacent to it. Even though we have some vegetative cover in there, for example, the meadow that we are going to enhance with the woody plants. There is vegetation on the ground there, but that is pretty sparse. So that would be good turtle nesting habitat, for example. By way of constructing the retaining wall, I think we are providing a physical barrier that's separating that naturally vegetated land from the developed portions of the site. I think that's a good thing. And also the 76,000, give or take, square feet of buffer zone that we are restoring by way of adding topsoil, putting down a pollinator mix. I think we're enhancing and extending that naturally vegetated land that borders on Newton Pond. So on balance, I think this project actually improves the habitat because in large part, there's not much habitat there now with the degraded nature of the site. So we're redeveloping it. We're stabilizing it with lawn and landscaping, yes, which doesn't provide ideal habitat, but we're trying to find the balance here. So by way of extending and enhancing those larger areas of land, I think we actually will have an improvement.
Thank you.
Chris?
No, just to comment that I appreciate the efforts you guys made to alter your plans to comply with the bylaws. I know it was it's all economics, and I appreciate that you guys made the sacrifice to do that, so thank you.
Oh, yeah?
With those buffer areas, obviously with a wetland restoration area, you have the necessary 2-year monitoring period. That obviously is not required with these restoration areas, but is there any, either an O&M plan or any plan to kind of monitor the area to ensure that all of those plantings are kind of coming up and growing in, and it's not just gonna turn into raw dirt again? Or knotweed, or knotweed.
I don't think it would be unreasonable for the commission to include a special condition that says, after a year or one full growing season, right, of the seed being, sown and germinated, that somebody with some experience inspects the area to make sure that, the seed's coming up, it's germinating. If there are areas that need to be reseeded, those could be reseeded at this time.
Okay.
The seed mixes, in our experience, the first year, it is usually a bit sparse. Especially when you put it in the spring. A lot of the seeds have to overwinter before they germinate. So usually the first year, if we were to sow the seeds in the spring, for example, we'd probably have half of what was going to come up and germinate that year will actually come up. And then the rest of it that's going to populate the area would germinate the second year.
Okay.
In the fall, I think similarly, you'd have the seed overwinter. You might have a little bit more of the plants germinate in the spring because the seed's been in there, and a lot of the ones that have to overwinter will have overwintered. But I think a special condition requiring that is more than reasonable.
Okay. And then, I know some of these, what are the slopes on the, a lot of these restored areas will be occurring on the slopes, kind of leaving the site. Do you know what those slopes
They're
would be?
typically 3 to 1.
3 to 1, okay.
Slopes, yeah.
Yeah, and I think to the extent, the degraded land now is sort of unnatural and, pit and moundy, but not in a good way. I think the intent is to sort of grade those areas to a more natural slope, descending, from the wall down toward, the wetland areas, adding the topsoil, putting the seed down, and they'll probably either hydroseed it or, put down some straw after to stabilize the soil.
Will there be any efforts to make smaller pits and mounds?
Within a wetland replication area, you want that because you have the different hydrology exposed at the surface. I don't think you're going to get that in a buffer zone restoration. So it would probably be more efficient to, just create, it's not going to be perfectly level. Whenever we work with the contractors, I was with one last week, in fact, we were doing a replication area, and a lot of these contractors are used to building detention basins, and they get in there and they make it perfectly flat, and the slopes are perfectly smooth, and it takes a little bit of convincing to get them out of that mindset and say, no, be sloppy. You want pits and mounds, you don't want everything to be exactly perfect, and so we can work with whatever contractors out there doing the work and make sure that it's done in a way that's more natural.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, I did have a question about the snow storage areas. I appreciate the addition of the signage, but I had a little confusion about the snow storage located directly in front of the signage. Is it just like up to this point, no snow storage, but then before this point, there, you can have,
No,
is the
it's-
blue where the snow storage is
Yes.
going? Okay, so there's blue and then there's no snow storage signs?
No, the snow, no, what the signs designate is really the demarcation point. Beyond the sign, you may
Okay,
not.
no additional.
Don't
No
throw it
different-
over into
Yeah,
the
that's
wetland.
typically
Yeah,
what
don't
it's
keep
for,
pushing.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I mean, we could do a sign beyond this point to make it a little clearer for the contractors, but again,
Yeah,
JFI will
that might-
have their property managers will know, when they're managing the property.
Yeah,
How
if you
the
could
snow
include
storage
just
is managed.
the additional line of no snow storage beyond this point, just to really clear it up for those kiddos. I think that was it for my questions.
Any questions from the audience? Can you, yeah, sure. Are you able to come up to the mic? No.
Being uneducated, this could be a funny question, but is there gonna be a reduction in asphalt and cement with the reduction of buildings?
Through the chair,
Sure.
the net reduction is a little over 60,000 square feet of asphalt and concrete based on the building construction and the driveways and the access, yes.
I should have paid attention to impervious, because I figured if the asphalt didn't go, the water would come off the roof and would still go across, but thank you.
What was your name for the record?
John Keegan.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Ken?
Hi there. Excuse me. Christy Dupre, 14 Candlewood Way. Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate it also going, as your comments have said, with the plan, so that's very encouraging. In regards to the wildlife, I didn't hear all of it since I was listening at home previously, but in regards to what is seen, I am more than happy to share, being a resident on the more of the Sewell side, and can show pictures of very large snapping turtles, other turtles that do cross actually all the time from the gravel pit area, from Holden Street area. We had to help one across the way a little quicker one day. But I even had a little weasel coming, and someone stopped. I don't know what he had in his mouth, but he actually came across right near the Newton Pond area, and was definitely had crossed over for something, and then was crossing back. So there's wildlife all around, and obviously we cannot direct them where they need to go, but I do hope there are parameters for them to continue with their natural habitat. I appreciate the comments of it not being completely flat, but I am curious of how, I understand of the wall height. I'm curious to see the wall height of these retaining walls, because you're saying that will keep out the wildlife, is that correct? That's kind of my question through the chair.
Sure.
I know this is sort of a question for both of us to answer, but I just wanted to say that I'm not suggesting that wildlife do not use the sand and gravel site. What I'm suggesting is that the preferred habitat is going to be that vegetated land adjacent to and along that Newton Pond corridor. I don't think the wildlife, once a wall gets to be 4-6 feet tall, I don't think the wildlife care how tall it is. It's a barrier for them for movement. Mm-hmm. But I know that the walls are a little bit taller than that. But
So to embellish on Rich's comments, the wall heights vary as you're going from plan left to plan right. Where the wall ends, it's actually about 2 feet. Highest point is anywhere from 20 to 25 feet. But actually, we're able to reduce wall heights to some degree by pulling the limit of work line further away from the wetlands. and allowed us to do a little more grading to raise the grade at the toe of the wall, and by function of that, reduce the wall height as a function of that. So we did get some benefit in terms of the retaining wall heights in general from the redesign.
Okay. Do you have a visual of those retaining walls with any of these plans of what they look like?
I can answer that question.
Sure.
So all of the retaining wall designs were submitted as part of the site plan package with the planning board, and we reviewed those at 2 separate meetings.
Okay.
So engineering has those. Engineering has.
They're online on the project website. They've been submitted, and they're a part of the full set that was sent to Aaliyah.
So on the town website, there's,
Yeah.
the special page for this, those will be included there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
I haven't come across them, that's why I was asking.
Okay.
The visual person, so that's why I like to see it.
Yeah, it can be helpful too.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So what would you guys like to do? Would you like to?
Because Chair, the planning board continues to be open, I think we would like to request a continuance to the July meeting while we await final comments from our Allen. We submitted DEP comments, which we believe have been satisfied, but would like to continue to the July meeting and come back.
Okay. This meeting's continued till July 16th.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for your efforts too.
Yep.
Okay.
There's gotta be a better way.
A lot of paper.
Just throw it on their front and I'll deal with it in a bit.
Good evening.
We have a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Ezek Petre, 1900 West Park Drive, Suite 180, Westboro, for the construction of a residential multifamily housing community consisting of 300 units, clubhouse, and supporting amenities and infrastructure at 3369 Green Street. Hello.
Good evening. Thank you. Again, I'm Essex Petrie with Pulte Homes, here with Matt Leidner of CDG Engineering, and I believe joining us remotely, we have Meredith Bornstein from SWCA.
Yeah, she did seem like let me see if I can stop sharing if she wants to do something with that.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time tonight. So we originally presented the project back in January. We introduced the project and detailed our notice of intent application. During that meeting, the commission requested a few changes to the plans, including moving some walls behind Building 3 away from the BBW area, also expanding our replication area to meet the 2-to-1 ratio. And we were also asked to provide some additional notes to our detail on the wetland replication area regarding the soils that are going to be used in that area. We returned in February and presented those plans and demonstrated that we accommodated those changes and walked through those changes. And at that meeting, we requested a continuance, really for 2 reasons. We didn't have a DEP number at that time, but also we were still in the process of going through the comprehensive permit application with ZBA. We are now at a place where we've received our DEP number. We are at a place with our meetings with the ZBA where we're ready to complete the comp permit process. Our plans are complete, and so we're confident that the same plans that we filed with Concom will be consistent with the plans that will be on file with ZBA. During that time when we got our DEP number, we did get some comments from DEP. We responded to those comments, shared those comments with the commission over the past couple of weeks. We believe that we've satisfied those DEP comments as well as the commission's previous comments. And as part of the ZBA permit process, we did go through numerous peer review, including site plan, stormwater, with Graves Engineering. And with ZBA, we did satisfy the peer review comments and completed that process. And so at this point, I'd like to open it up if there's any questions or comments.
Okay. Diane?
Yeah, so maybe this is late in the game. I can't remember if you talked about it before, I'm sorry. Is there any plan to avoid fertilizers, phosphorus, that kind of stuff on the lawn areas? Herbicides, pesticides, all that?
We have not set aside that plan yet, no.
So any that would be used would be just flowing gradually into the wetlands?
So, if I can
Please.
jump in there. I guess one option could be a condition that would regulate what can and can't be used in certain areas of the site. But what I will say, just generally, is that the site conforms to, even though it's a comprehensive permit project, it does conform to the town's stormwater management bylaw, which is more stringent than the state standards, and specifically has a requirement to manage phosphorus in terms of phosphorus removal within the stormwater BMP network. And so we do achieve that required 60% total phosphorus removal within the stormwater management system at the site proposed.
Right.
Okay. Martha?
I would just like to expand a little bit on that. It's great to keep the phosphorus out, and as you say, it's part of the town's regulations. I think Diane is referring to other, what is considered typical lawn care practices that some people come to expect, not just fertilizers, but also the application of pesticides and herbicides for weed control. And some are better than others in terms of biological degradation, but I think given that there's so many wetlands around the area, and there is going to be impact of practices on those adjacent wetlands, that we would be interested in seeing some sort of maintenance plan that would be minimally impactful on the wetlands, which would include any sort of chemical application. And you will probably get residents that will be concerned about mosquitoes. And we know that mosquito control is, it's an issue of public health, but it's also an issue of maintaining biodiversity. So it's complicated, but the fact that, and we appreciate absolutely everything that you have done in planning this development, to keep it as least impactful as before, or as possible. So, does that explain your concern a little bit more?
Yes, I
Okay,
understand.
thank you. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that.
May I ask,
Oh, go right ahead.
okay, thank you, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If, I guess, there's certainly going to be other questions and more discussion. If this ends up being, one of the only items remaining on the table, would it be possible to consider that as a condition, I guess, of approval, perhaps submission of a landscape maintenance plan that speaks to the concerns, perhaps to Aaliyah, to the satisfaction of Aaliyah. Would the commission consider that?
I would be in favor of
Sure.
that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sure this will also, as the project unfolds, there will be lots of construction meetings and if it's for some reason not immediately fleshed out, planning in the past has been interested in how we are maintaining our landscapes as well, especially outside of our jurisdiction of wetland buffer zones. So, I think it would be very possible to develop and kind of keep track of that.
Okay, all right, something that we will write into the orders, and that makes sense.
And yeah, and I'm sure it'll come up again, because in later conversations for earlier developments, we see it kind of come up more, because it's kind of, it's a smaller matter, so it's not the first thing that comes up, but it's definitely been done before. And if you haven't been issued your ZBA final thing yet, it could definitely be a consideration to kind of tie it all together and be like, here's our plan for the grounds. But yeah, it should be no problem to have a special condition asking for the O&M for landscaping, and that might be a good
As part of that, sure.
final to be turned in. If obviously we'll receive the initial now, but as you're coming to the end of the project, that's when it'll kind of start to fall into place, and you'll see how it's playing out a little better.
Yep.
So it might be a good with the as-builts at the end of this project to submit the final landscape plan as you guys have see how it's working out and how, what needs to change and how it all is going together, so.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
It seems
prior
like
to the
it's kind
certificate
of,
a compliance, it would wrap it all up in a bow.
okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
So if we were to close this tonight, we'd add that in as a condition to our.
Yeah, it would be a special condition to submit a final landscape, long-term landscape maintenance plan in order to receive a certificate of compliance.
Okay. Chris?
I have no additional questions.
Alea?
I don't think I had any additional questions either. They had addressed all of their comments from DEP.
Can I just say something? I just want to thank you for doing as careful a job as you have done, for reducing the amount of pavement, and trying to keep places open. I really thank you very much. Yeah.
Glad the plan works out.
You all set? You good? Anybody in the audience have any questions? All right. If you guys are all set, we can close the meeting.
Absolutely.
With the special, I would like to note that we had discussed a special condition for they will be installing a sales and construction trailer.
Correct.
Thingamabob with grading and a detention basin or infiltrate basin.
There'll be a stormwater feature.
A
associated
stormwater
with it,
feature,
yeah.
so that is included in the most updated plans, but will not be the special condition is that anything related to the sales and construction trailer, the earthwork, the erosion control, and the construction of that will be filed under a separate filing, so it will nothing in this order of conditions relates to that.
Correct, we
It'll
won't
be like
touch
its
that
own.
lot.
You'll be coming back with that?
Exactly. Yep.
Yep, okay. All right, so there being any questions, we'll close the hearing. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so where are we now? We are on,
Cherry Street.
that's continued, I think.
Yes.
Cherry Street was continued, Powell Drive was continued. All right, so we are on
422.
continued public hearing regarding notice of intent by Bod Mahaltra, 46 Deerfield Road, Shrewsbury, for the construction of a two-family home at 422 South Quinsigamon Ave.
Good evening, my name's Mike Scott. I'm an engineer at Land Design Collaborative in Westboro, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Malhotra. I was here last month. I don't know if you were able to see the plan or if it can be put up, but we're looking at 422 South Quinsigamond Ave. There's an existing single-family home and detached garage located to the rear. And Mr. Malhotra intends to demolish both and construct a duplex. And when we left the hearing last month, the commission had a couple of questions related specifically to plantings. So we revised the plans, and on sheet C102, which is going to be the third or fourth drawing, we did include a separate planting plan. And there's a species list at the top. One of our landscape architects went to the site and looked at vegetation and then made those selections based on what he saw. So you can see there's a number of red maples and
Mike, we might not have those.
Oh.
102.
102, it's.
C102.
I know, I don't think, this isn't the revised.
It's not the wrong, it's
Oh,
the
so-
plan.
Many plants. Okay, this one has a C102.
This hat.
It's the right project.
Right project, wrong plan.
So it'd be the 6.5 revision 2.
C102?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a 6.5, do you have the 6.5 drawing?
Hang on.
I do.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, you do. I'll look at yours. How's that?
Yeah, because that's the older set, I think, because it doesn't show the separate planting plan.
Let me see if I got.
It did, I'm sure we delivered.
You submit hard copies? Sorry.
If not, I can give you mine.
I think we
can do this from memory. I did email it to you too, if you can put it on the screen.
Okay.
On the drive folder, if you want to just pull it up.
I'll do this though.
You can zoom in.
So this is the revised sheet.
Smack your.
This is a boring one, but I
Yep.
did put color on there, so it would be more obvious what's what.
I got the guys.
And then the next sheet has the planting plan, that's probably what you're more interested in.
Share this tab instead. Ooh, pretty.
So again, when we were here last month, there was a note regarding planting of native species as well as a seed mix, but we added quantities and sizes to the plans. So that was one of the comments by the commission. There was also questions from DEP regarding the plantings, but also, so they had the same concern. They also asked a question about the total disturbance. Yeah, this is the more recent plan.
Okay.
So the planting plan's on the right, and then on the left is a breakdown of the disturbed areas and the areas to be restored. So this has been a topic on a couple of conversations tonight. We had tabulated it previously, but this time I actually labeled what every area was. So the red areas are the red hatching is the area of new disturbance within the riverfront. The green hatching, the green plus signs, that's the restoration area that goes with the planting plan to the right. The green above that, or inside the second erosion control barrier, the first line, if you will, as you look from the street, those two areas are areas of existing driveway and the existing home that will be removed. So those are areas with an absence of topsoil today. So summing those green areas, there's a summation at the top, which I can't see, but it's on your sheet, is somewhere in the 4,900 square feet or so of restoration versus, or 4,700 square feet versus the 4,300 or so square feet that was previously disturbed. So we're sorry, half of that. So we've got the 2-to-1 ratio. That's what the table is demonstrating. So one of the questions that DEP asked was, how was the edge of the wetland or edge of the stream determined? And in my response to them on the 5th of June, when the plans were sent, the surveyor didn't trespass. The river is 60 feet onto the neighbor's land, and if you've been out there, it's quite dense. So he has a drone image. He said that was accurate to 2 to 3 feet. So what we did was we actually projected the riverfront area 3 feet closer to the street and recalculated everything. So this plan and the updated form are based on the riverfront extending an additional 3 feet out towards the street. So I would consider it conservative because it's a really distinct channel. It's very incised. You can see that in the photos. And so the numbers on this plan reflect that second recalculation, if you will. And again, we still meet the 2 to 1 for restoration. We're still under the 5,000 for the property itself because it is only a few thousand square foot lot. And those, I think, were the two outstanding issues. The third being just the resubmittal of the form, which we did provide. So this has been filed for a special permit with the planning board. That hearing's next month. And then the stormwater calcs, Mr. Malhotra will file that application. But we did include a full stormwater report because of the town's standards, and we are meeting the phosphorus and, all the recharge requirements as well. And the recharge is in an area of lawn above the restored area, so there'd be no reason to need to get into the restored area for maintenance if anything were ever to fail. That area can be left alone.
Okay, Diane, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Martha?
I'm all set.
Chris?
All set.
Aaliyah?
I wanted to confirm that the erosion control would be installed prior to the demolition of the, what is
The
that?
shed in the
gar-
back. That's the
shed
garage. Yes.
thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then,
Then the second line will be once they
Demolish
pull everything out. yeah.
carefully so that all that, ugh, doesn't get near the wetland.
It's a wooden structure with a slab.
Okay.
And that area is relatively flat. It's tiered. It's the walkout, so,
Mhm.
they'll be able to pull it off.
Okay,
From
pretty
above.
easily, they
Yeah.
can just kind of
Yep,
scoop
bring
it
it
out.
up the slope.
Okay,
Yep.
and then that's obviously will be removed.
That
from
goes
site.
off, the topsoil goes in, yep, it can be
Okay.
stabilized, and then that second row of erosion barriers can go in, and that's where the work for the home is. And then we also show boulders placed that's, it's 25 feet or so, I think you asked that question.
That was a condition.
Sorry, yeah.
Something we mentioned last week.
So we
last month.
show it graphically. We're not sure if they're gonna hit any boulders, but we are showing something.
Okay, that's what those.
Yeah,
okay,
there's a note.
Big square thingies.
There's a
yeah.
note to the right.
Okay.
Yep.
Martha, do you have any concerns on the planting?
No.
Yeah, they look like, well, they look nice and condensed in there too. They're not gonna be sparse.
Yeah, we asked our junior LA not to make it look like a manicured. Tried to spread it around. It looked like a row planting initially, and we said, think like it doesn't, like it belongs there, not like it was put there. So he redid it.
Martha, I don't know if this is a question that you could answer, but is there any kind of lawn seed mix that is better than turf grass that could be installed you still get the lawn appearance without the turf grass monoculture?
Right.
Like a nice sedge or something?
I've seen, I haven't seen it in practice, but online.
Yeah.
In some of the
I
nurseries,
know, I definitely see in my,
yeah.
in my, hippier, dippier,
They're not
like
hippie,
alternatives
yeah.
to lawn.
Yeah.
You can
Like
have lawn
Pennsylvania
adjacent
sedge or
plantings.
Appalachian sedge.
That might be a good alternative to
You don't have to mow either.
just a turf grass, because then I understand you're converting these currently impervious driveway and house spaces into pervious areas, but it would be great if it's not just turf grass pervious areas.
All right, well, let me talk to the two landscape
Yeah, if-
architects and
if,
see if they have,
yeah,
they
if
put a
you're landscape
recommendation
guys,
on
I'm
there, but
sure.
I'm sure it was a turf lawn, because that's.
Yeah.
Standard. But the homeowners might appreciate something that is less maintenance, lower maintenance.
Yeah, I know they have they have the cold growing alternatives, that tend to grow in the spring and the fall, so you have to mow far less frequently. And then there's another alternative that's grass. I think you just have to mow it less. If they really wanted to get wild, they could plant wild strawberries or clover. but then you don't get your beautiful grassy lawn. So, yeah, consideration might, or a
Well, we're certainly willing to
potential
talk.
special condition could be to have an alternative to turf grass
We
lawn.
can send you an alternative.
That would be great,
And,
yeah.
I mean, I can't guarantee that's what's gonna end up there, but we can put, we can guarantee that they consider it.
Yeah,
Because once it's in and they're gonna do what they wanna do.
yeah.
But it's one positive, it's.
Not
a-
if there's an in perpetuity special
Well.
condition that says, please don't ever
I know, I'd like,
turf grass here.
I'd like to think that's true.
But-
Behind the house on the, anyway, yes, we can give you an alternative.
May I ask, and this is not related to wetlands, but it is related to the question of home ownership going forward. Are these, this is a two-family home, right?
Mhm.
Is it being built to, like for a landlord-tenant situation or for home ownership?
I don't know, I did not ask him that. I know he's a builder and sells, I don't think he's a builder that holds, but I don't know about this two-family situation.
Okay.
I would tell you, but I genuinely don't know. With the single families he's selling, he's not a landlord. We're doing a project for him in Westboro he's gonna reside in. But he's built a number of homes in Shrewsbury.
Right.
I think you know, or they
Right,
have.
we're familiar
Right,
with it.
yes.
Yeah.
So we are doing 3 or 4, or maybe 5 now with him, and they're all for sale. So I presume this one is, but I'll know, I can find that out and let you know. I'm sure it'll be a question at the planning board, so I will find out.
Great.
Yeah.
Because I think that speaks to the continuation of lawn. What
Yeah.
is in the lawn.
Mm-hmm.
That would make it easier to police.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any questions from the audience? So, what would you like to do with this? Would you like to close this or keep it open till?
No, I prefer you close it
Close
and
it.
approve it.
You okay with closing it? With the
Yeah.
Condition for the,
Yeah, with a special condition to include an in perpetuity special condition.
Okay, we'll close the hearing.
And then, yeah, you can submit that alternative after
Yep,
the
we'll do that.
It's on your landscapers.
If I can get an answer to the home sale or lease, I will find that out.
Yeah, well, since there's the stormwater systems on site too, it might be a good addition to the O&M plan to have, hey, this is how you take care of this weird grass that you have.
True.
Oh, yeah, that's.
You can keep those if you need them, or I can take them back, doesn't matter.
In my absence of an updated plan, Diane, it would be great if I could hold on to that one.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't know why.
All right.
Lost my
We have a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Paul Valenti, 7 Temple Court, Shrewsbury, for the demolition and reconstruction of a single-family home and associated site work at 7 Temple Court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Grenier, James Grenier Associates. I'm also here with Paul Valenti, who is the owner and applicant. Paul will be, Paul's a site contractor. He will be doing most of the site work on this. As you said, this is a redevelopment of this.
John, are
this.
you able to drop off hard copies of the revised plans? And I'm not.
I thought we did, but
Okay,
I'm not.
then let me dig a little harder.
I thought we did. I thought I had them dropped off. So since our last meeting, there's an existing house on here. It was falling in on itself. Paul has, through a permit with the building department, which was signed off by you, the structure itself has been taken down. It was a hazard. The foundation is still in place, and there on the northeasterly side, there was an old shed there's a slab there that's still in place. For the redevelopment of this, it was also requested from the commission to take a look at the existing vegetation and trees that are on site. Mr. Valenti did hire an arborist, and we did provide a report to the commission with his findings. It was from Templeman Tree Service, and he came out, actually we both met him on site, and what he found was the vast majority of the trees that are on site, they're mostly dead. There are some that, it looks like some people had done some severe limbing on some. There's some big scars and rot in the trees. And he didn't feel, according to his report, that he says there are approximately 13 trees, mature trees, that are dead or within varying degrees of decline. He labeled out, there's some dead elm trees, dead red maples. On the north side, there were maples and oaks. He said the maples dead or greater than 70% decline. There was a large oak that is in the back that has several structural defects, 3 large cavities and column decay. So it was his recommendation that these trees get removed. And what I went through with Paul was, and also with the arborist, is what we would propose to do is, I believe there was 12 or 13 trees that he said should get removed. We're proposing to plant new trees to replace those along the shoreline, along the edge of the yard area, so that they will provide shade along the shoreline and long-term provide, healthier trees. These trees, they're either dead or they're ready to fall into the lake. So he will be proposing to replace those trees with a mix of pin oaks, gray dogwood, and some silver linden. And these are ALB resistant trees. In addition to that, along the top of the slope adjacent to the yard area, we are proposing a mix of shrubs so that we try to keep, when we met out with Aaliyah, the concern is having, lawn right down to the edge of the lake. So we are proposing to have a natural shrub in addition to, there are other saplings and shrubs along the shore which will not be touched. But in addition to that, and further upslope, reinforcing that with a mix of shrubs along the top of the slope, so that, again, you don't have just lawn right out to the edge of the lake. There is an existing stairway, concrete steps, we were overgrown. You could see them earlier in the spring when we were there. It was you could kind of spot it through all of the weeds and vines that were growing. He's looking to reconstruct that and install a dock at the base. And there must have been a dock there at some point. Obviously, that's gone. There was an old lamp post that you could see that's still sticking up by the edge of the shore. Somebody had a lamp post there, but that's obviously in much disrepair. So he will be proposing to install a dock at the base of where those existing steps are. Additionally, where Temple Court comes in and dead ends into the site, we're going to extend that for the driveway and garage going into the house. Along the shoulder of that, we are proposing an infiltration trench so that we can capture the runoff from that. There is a paved driveway that goes into the existing, went into the existing house. So obviously we're realigning that, but we're going to be capturing that runoff in through an infiltration trench along the shoulder of that driveway. And one other item that was brought up, I don't know if it was brought up by you, Martha, or you, Diane, was a turnaround. So it's on the lower left area, it says staging area, because that's where they'll do some staging during construction. He'll put a little gravel apron there so that backing out, nobody will get the great idea of trying to back out towards the lake. They'll have, in the front of the front steps, you can back in with a little gravel area right there. We're trying to reduce the amount of impervious area so you can have a little turning area and then turn out and go back out Temple Court out to North Quinsigamon Ave. We also did modify, based on comments from Aaliyah, we made sure, again, it's an undersized lot. It's like just under 10,900 square feet. We did pull the limits of the foundation, so on the more, I would call it natural side, on the north and on the western side, we keep that we're more than 30 feet or at 30 feet with the foundation. On the driveway side, we are 24 feet with that. But again, it's a small, undersized lot, so we're trying to make it reasonable. So to the extent that we could keep it at 30 feet, along where the open lake is, we kept it 30 feet. On the easterly side, that's kind of a little inlet that comes, it's like a little finger of the lake that kind of comes in. And there's some other homes, which is, I think, it's closer to like the Main Street side. There's like a little inlet that comes in. There's other homes on the other side of that. So where it opens out to the main lake, we made sure to keep that 30 feet with the foundation. There is a small proposed deck that would come off of like the kitchen / bedroom area. But that would just be some sonotubes within the yard area. And we're maintaining just to where I think the corner of a sonotube would be for the stairway. That would be 19 feet. That's within the yard. So it's an undersized lot. It's a redevelopment. The site is in tough shape right now. It's not the best looking location. Anything that Paul does to it, which again, I think will be a vast improvement to what is there right now, because any of the runoff from Temple Court, everything just runs off into the lake. We'll be capturing any impervious surfaces and treating that, recharging it. We're capturing the roof runoff into some subsurface recharge chambers, recharging that into the ground, and then we'll also be making improvements to both the trees and the shrubs that are half dead or in various stages of dying along the shore. So we're going to be planting 12 or 13 trees along there and then reinforcing that with the shrubs. So overall, I think we're doing everything we can to take what's an undersized kind of lot that's in disrepair. I'm trying to find nice words, and bring it up to current standards and improve the shoreline to the extent that we can. So with that, if you have any questions or comments, we'd like to address them.
Diane?
Yeah, sure. So I totally understand. This is a hard lot to figure out how to build on. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, I would want a house on a little peninsula like that. It's nice. I'm sure, in my fantasies it's nice, but this is a great idea. But I remember last time we talked about the idea of rotating the house maybe to keep it out of the 30-foot buffer. And you said something that I didn't understand. So I get to ask it again. You said something about it's really hard to design the driveway if the house is not oriented like this. Is that right? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay, what do I not understand?
I don't know.
So why can the house not be oriented so that where it says proposed deck, that's not facing north as opposed to
so rotate it more
northwest?
clockwise.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the more clockwise, if you, in the back left corner,
Yeah.
if you held that as your pivot point,
Okay.
and
You could also move
rotate
it up a little bit.
and rotate rotate the house clockwise, you would end up putting more of the foundation on that easterly side within the 30-foot. Because you'd be rotating where that top point, you'd be pulling that, you'd get more square footage within the 30-foot. Right now, we just have that corner, but if you rotate that, you take that box and you rotate it around, you would end up with more square footage of the foundation within the 30-foot.
Is that why you did it that way?
We tried to keep as much as we could outside the 30-foot.
Yeah, see how it.
And where the existing driveway is, and for the existing house, and that's, and also that's the lowest spot. That's obviously the place for the driveway so that we can sheet flow that driveway into the recharge infiltration trenches. So you'd be, I know where you're going, but you would end up taking that and you would end up with more square footage within the buffer, that 30-foot buffer on
You have
on
to
that
keep that
right-hand
as the
side.
pivot point. You
What?
can't shift it within that box, basically.
Maybe make it go this way?
No.
You mean to make it more
Facing north.
parallel with Temple Court?
Yeah.
Or at least the entrance of the driveway connects with the lot.
You would end up with as much, if not more, foundation within that 30-foot, I believe.
How many,
Um,
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
this is part of Diane's question. So how many square feet are in the court, not counting the deck, how many square feet of the house is in the 30-foot no structure zone?
Call it, that's 12 by, call it 6.
Yeah.
So
That's about right.
72, so that would be 36 square feet.
Okay.
You know, the lot, it almost becomes like a taking from the commission. I mean, he's surrounded by water. I mean, this is a very unusual lot. I mean, he's trying to keep it out of the two sides, if you will. Now, the backside, he's in by, what is it, 70, 80 square feet, so it's a tough one.
It is. It's a tough lot, for sure.
But, you know, we don't want to, Martha, do you have any questions?
I was going to talk about plants.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Right ahead.
I had a feeling you'd be talking about plants.
I'm looking at the letter from the arborist,
Yes.
and I want to make note that gray dogwood is not, and winterberry are not trees.
Oh,
They
yeah,
are
he
shrubs.
was some additional shrubs.
Okay,
too.
all right, so just
they'll
as long as you aren't thinking that if you plant gray dogwood, that's a tree. It's
Right.
not a tree, okay. And then he's got beech listed on here, and I would avoid beech because we now have the beech leaf nematode.
Disease thingy.
Disease thing that's.
What is it?
Yeah, it's
It causes,
not looking good for beeches.
yeah, spots on the beech tree that
Oh.
actually degrade the tree. So it, in probably near future years, will also be added to a list of no plant trees in Mass.
So if I might suggest, tulip trees are lovely. They're very tall.
Tulip?
Tulip
Yeah, that'll be a
trees.
gorgeous shade
Yeah,
tree in
pretty.
30
Yeah.
to 50 years.
Do they have a big spread to them, or are they more,
No, they're more
columnar.
linear. They're more columnar.
okay,
And the other one would be hickory. If he's looking to provide nuts, which the beech tree would, then hickory would be an alternative for that. And there are a couple of different species.
okay.
But I love the oaks that you're proposing. We don't get enough oaks
Yeah.
replanted.
I mean, they're beautiful trees, but I had oak in I hated them. They're such a-
I personally am not a fan of an oak, but they are
Every
a
fall I
very,
would
very,
curse
very
them.
important species, so. on
In the
behalf of the oaks.
right tree, right place.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So this will be, you're proposing to remove, was it 12 or 13 trees?
Yeah, I wanted 2, 4, 5, 13.
Okay, so 13 trees are proposed to be removed. I want to ensure that it's a one.
It
that
is
it's
1-to-1.
1-to-1, so 13 trees will be planted.
Yes.
In addition to your shrubs and dogwoods
Correct.
and all your fun friends.
And can we specify a minimum diameter and caliper?
We were gonna say
Yeah, sure.
2-inch.
2 inches
bigger?
good.
Okay.
Yep.
2-inch caliper requirement. Sorry, are you done? Would you like to continue?
Okay,
Unless John's got questions.
Yeah. Or, sorry.
I'm good.
HR's board.
It's going in the right direction. I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Without knowing exactly how you access the deck, I don't know where the doorway is there any way you can move the deck or shrink the deck so it's outside of the 30-foot?
No, we could
zone?
do, we could,
Could it
where the,
scoot to the right a smidge?
where the stairwell is going down, where that bumps out, if we flipped it
If you put the stairs on the,
on the other,
Yeah.
or on the right-hand side, even going down, so then we can flip it and just pull that back a little bit. That's,
I mean, it's, to me, it's less invasive because it's just sonotubes,
right.
but
But we
still
can pull it
depends.
closer, so it's,
Yeah, then
at
it's
that
nice
point,
little tighter.
it'll be further into the center of the site. Put flip steps.
no other questions.
Leah?
Okay, so you were proposing additional shrub plantings along the north and east side, so that's receiving less, and that's kind of the, it seems like the less disturbed side, we'll say. Is that?
Say that again?
I'm sorry, the north and west side, I apologize, that was totally backwards.
The north, yes.
Okay.
Well, we were mixing the trees on like the east and the west side.
Okay,
And then as you get towards like the straight north, like where the steps are, having
Get more
a
shrubbery.
more dense
so
shrubbery.
you can kind of have your view.
Yeah, still have some
Okay.
views, but still maintain a good shrub
Okay.
buffer.
So my question is, if you're retaining some of the existing shrubbery, you're not doing a lot of grading and.
Not along the
changes there?
shoreline,
Okay.
no.
Is there any possibility to pull the erosion control
In?
in there, kind of above that line, so that it's very clear to contractors that we're not smushing all those shrubs and,
Yeah, well, the only thing is where he's taking out some of those trees,
okay,
he's gonna have to pull the stumps too.
Okay.
So we were trying to encompass that within the,
I don't know.
Does he need to pull the stumps for construction, or can he just leave, are the
He's
trees in a
gonna-
place where,
in some of those areas, they're gonna be good size root balls and stumps, and eventually they'll rot out, but I think he'd prefer to pull the stumps and then stabilize it and then plant, do his tree planting and shrubs.
what does that do being so close to the lake?
Yeah, I don't love the
Isn't it-
ECB along the lake line is one of my concerns.
Well, if he's replanting trees in that area, he's going to need to have that.
Area anyhow.
He's gonna be working in there anyway,
Right.
and he might as well watch it and
Would there be a
stabilize it as soon as he can.
possibility of installing a second line of erosion control at the top of the slope once all of the tree
It's-
stumping and things have
Yeah.
finished?
Getting this, Paul?
So at the top of, it doesn't have to be, the full
Right.
wattle and
Well-
silt fence combo, but we could do at least like a
Right, like-
wattle, and that would at least discourage general smushing
Yeah.
of the guys on the slopes.
Okay.
Obviously, it's a kind of a steep slope. I don't think you or your workers are going to be like trotting on
Right.
down every time, but I would like to
We can put another.
discourage
we
the
can-
trotting.
Yeah, we can put an extra row, so once he does that, and then he can go in to plant it.
Yeah.
So it won't be, that's fine.
Yeah, and then, then it'll kind of define it, and then it'll slow any erosion,
Right.
any runoff
Right.
pretty quickly,
And
so you
keep in mind
won't
too, it's,
have
this is, it's very sandy over
a
there.
bunch of sediment accumulating at the bottom
Right.
of the slope.
Right. It's very, very sandy
Mhm.
over there, so.
Yeah. So it should just run through, but,
Yeah, no, so it's.
yeah,
At least in that regard, it's a little bit easier because it's good pervious soil, but I understand your point.
okay. And then, this came up earlier tonight, but so there is the existing foundation on site. That's proposed to be entirely removed from the site.
Correct, and
Okay.
that'll be trucked out.
Okay. And then
Not gonna
if you
be-
could just take care while doing that, not to dump it all in the lake or
Oh,
get
no.
dust everywhere or,
No, the heavy lifting,
what
for
you
the most part, has been done with the removal of the structure.
yeah, now it's just
Now,
the
The foundation itself,
concrete box.
he'll break that up and load it in a dump truck and it's going.
Awesome, okay.
Hopefully
Okay.
not to Worcester sand and gravel.
Can't go there much longer. Okay. I think that was most of my notes. Do you know how much, so there's the existing driveway.
Mm-hmm.
How much additional driveway is kind of proposed in that 30 to 15
You know,
doodad?
in all the existing, there's an existing conditions plan, there's another sheet, which it's gotta be less. It's gotta be, because that existing driveway extends within the 15-foot to about where those, oh, see, okay, right there on the
Yeah, okay.
right-hand side.
Oh, yeah, it really cuts in close.
So that cuts in close, and that's in an area where I believe, that's close to where we're gonna be planting some trees and then along that line of the 15-foot, that's where we're gonna be installing that infiltration trench. So we're pulling it further away, and it's getting squared up to where the garage is. So it's smaller in terms of square footage, it's a wash. And we're making sure that we have our infiltration trench sized so that we can take that 1 inch full off of that driveway as well. So,
Okay. Okey-doke.
I mean, you've seen that slope over there?
Yeah,
It's gonna get cleaned.
yeah,
up,
it does
so
keep, yeah.
It's a mess over
Pretty
there.
quick.
Okay.
I think that's all my questions.
Okay, any questions from the audience? Everybody here, okay, any other questions?
No.
So, John, what would you like to do? Would you like to?
I'd like to close the hearing.
Okay.
I feel like I'm on a game show.
We'll close the hearing.
Door number 1, door number 2.
So, yeah, I'll just need to receive those revised plans with
Okay.
the additional ECB line, and that, if possible, that revised deck
Yes, we're gonna
orientation
flip that.
prior to issuing the OOC.
Okay.
So we'll put that as, those will be conditions. all
Okay.
right, and then.
And I actually talked to the architect today, and he was asking me, are we good? And I said, hang on. I said, let me go to this meeting, and then, because he was wondering about, a couple of things. So I said, hang on, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okey-doke.
Okay,
Cool.
all right.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay, moving right along, we have a continued public hearing regarding the request of an amended order of conditions filed by Rashid Sheikh, 24 Sherrill Drive, Shrewsbury, for the construction of 2 single-family houses at 2022 Graylock, formerly 3739 Melvin, and 42 Sadler Ave.
There's some plans.
That'd be great, yeah, if you could submit them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Constitution members, and thank you for your time. Aaliyah, did the commission members get the letter from?
Yes, they did, let me pull that up.
Okay.
It was just added, because it was submitted today, it was just added today, so I imagine the commission has not had
Okay.
any time to review it.
Nope.
Have some extra copies of it, if you'd like a paper copy?
Yeah, if you could submit a paper copy as well, that would be great.
I'm good. I have it.
I will need.
But I
at
haven't
least-
read it yet.
I will need at least one, so they can read along. Yes, please, thank you. Let me,
I have it. I'm good. Thank you. Aaliyah probably needs a copy.
I can just steal one of
Okay.
theirs at the end, I'll be fine.
So, my name is Irfan Nasrullah. I'm the attorney for Value Estate Trust, the owner of the property. I'll give you a moment to read the letter.
Yes. Pull up the plan and slides so we can review as we. So in addition to the letter submitted this afternoon, a final as-built was submitted for the project.
When did this come in?
3 or 4 p.m.
Sorry?
I'm unsure when Rashid sent it in. Let me see.
I think it was about 4,
Yeah,
maybe a little after 4.
yeah. Let me take a look in my inbox. I don't want other things pulled up.
So where are these flood vents that were put in?
So-
Shown on the plan?
Okay, we all know how we got here, the last meeting, Mr. Shake was telling you about the flood vents, and you didn't like the flood vents, weren't sure of the elevation, so currently we have, they're marked as A, B, C, D, E, F. There are 6 openings on 3 walls. They're all within, within 6 inches of the ground. Obviously, they had to be elevated a little bit so that rubber debris doesn't get in. But the openings, the flood vents have been removed, and it's now just an opening to allow floodwaters to freely flow through if need be. There's, like I said, it's on 3 walls surrounding the house, so it should provide the free flow of floodwater if flood were to occur. The compensatory storage is also greater post-development than pre-development. We have a table up on the top left, and I believe the flood calculations were performed by the town engineer.
Was your project engineer able to match the town engineer's calculations? I know there had been kind of a little bit of debate back and forth about which one was working.
I think he just went with the town
The town
engineers.
engineer, okay.
Yeah. So the openings for the flood area is, what's recommended by FEMA. The area in square inches, 185 square inches.
Yeah, this still doesn't comply with the order of conditions, so.
No, it
We've
doesn't.
been going through this for.
It doesn't,
for
it doesn't, that's why
months
we're
and
amending
months.
that's why this is an amended, trying to amend the order of conditions. And
Application for that?
I fully
Yeah, this
acknowledge.
is- So this is
that-
for sorry, let me walk through the process one more time.
Sure.
So originally, the order of conditions proposed the rear back wall that was open. The house was constructed without the rear back wall open. An enforcement order was issued with the closure of that enforcement order being, please submit for an amended order of conditions, telling us what you're gonna do instead of rear back wall open. This is that. Instead of rear back wall open,
Okay,
you get holes in wall.
okay.
We removed flood vents because they really felt like they were impeding the flow of the water. But now there's just the holes in wall.
Yeah, but they didn't construct the house in accordance with the order of conditions.
No.
Right, and what remains is storage
what
in the
So-
basement area.
That's absolutely correct. It was not constructed in accordance with the order of conditions. And, mea culpa, I wasn't involved in it, but I'll take blame here to say, when he was building the house, the building inspector said, no, do it this way. And he just kind of followed the lead of the building inspector. Now, he most certainly should have come back in here and said, given you an update, and could have had a more collaborative process rather than coming in after the fact and saying, can we change the order of conditions? But, it wasn't a blatant disregard of the Conservation Commission.
It was.
As much as it was just listening to the building
Well, it
inspector.
was, because he knew enough that we had so many meetings
Yeah,
on this for months and months and months. And he knew what we asked, and he knew what was required. All he had to do was come back.
yeah. I mean,
And he's been.
I agree.
on other
I mean,
projects.
I agree
God,
with what you're saying, but he followed the lead from the building inspector, and I guess he assumed that building inspector was in touch with the commission.
So, just to go over the elevations of the floor and the floodplain elevation.
Yeah.
So, the concrete floor elevation is 395.
Yep.
And what are the elevations of all these vents?
So
Is there
if
a
you look
table?
on the bottom left-hand corner, there's it shows you the elevation, the bottom elevation of all the vents. Sorry,
So it looks like
openings.
the
They're not vents.
lowest one is 395. And yes, the flood vent, so the final thing, the flood vents have been totally removed. There are just
Just big squares,
Just
rectangles.
squares.
Big openings.
Just big rectangles in-house now.
Have you seen these?
I have not been out to see the empty holes yet. I wasn't sure if there was a proposal to put something else in the holes, like a mesh or
I
a
mean-
lattice or a
It's
other
some- I mean,
impediment.
We'll do what the commission wants.
Yeah.
Okay? I would suggest that some type of screen to prevent rodents from getting in and nesting in the.
It's supposed to be open, that's the whole back wall was supposed to be open from the
Understood.
bottom up, so
Yeah.
they should remain open. And it's the bottom, the bottom level of the homes were not supposed to be used for storage, it was supposed to be open to the elements.
Yep. So now we have 6 openings per house, open to the elements.
So why are 2 of them at 396.25?
The 396.25, I
Yeah.
think that's just the elevation of the ground.
It says, it refers to A,
So if you look at,
On the side.
Yeah.
yes.
so is that?
Yeah, so those are on the sides of the building, and it kind of, the concrete scoops up and then hits the ground again, so it kind of slopes.
So those are openings, they're open, they're 16 and a half by 11 and a quarter openings,
Yes,
and they're up a foot,
16 and a half by 11 and a quarter.
and they're up a foot above the, so they.
I can't remember if the ground rises to meet them
But they're
along
further
the
off the
sides of the
basement floor.
house.
Yeah,
That's what
it,
Ken's point is.
they serve no
That's,
function.
yeah, they seem to kind of,
Those 2 serve no function, because they're above the flood elevation level.
yeah, once water gets, so if water gets to the height that it's going in, it's, once it gets lower than that level, you have water in the basement that's going to have trouble getting out.
It wouldn't get in, it wouldn't flood,
Wouldn't
you can't
be
use
getting
that
in.
area as flood storage, because that
Well, there was,
elevation is higher.
there was necessary flood storage at that elevation. That was, so like, if you think of.
396.25?
I believe so, because I think the entire property has layers of flood storage. So the side ones were to meet the higher, obviously, that's not how water is gonna work, but it's supposed to, like, that's, the water at that level is supposed to be able to get in at those sides.
I don't understand that, because if the flood,
Yeah, the flood has to get that high before they're effective.
Before they even work.
396.
Yeah.
396.
But supposedly,
397.
the flood storage below that level is met by the floodgates, flood openings, sorry,
The
no
four
gates, at
remaining.
the lower level.
Okay.
And then, once the water is inside,
Yeah,
it can't get out, so you have stagnant water that'll be causing, like, disease in the house.
that was a concern of the commission's at the offset,
Yeah.
I
and
recall.
continues to be a concern of the commission's.
So did they remove the sill plates in those areas as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so they are, at least, they're flat to the lowest
To the
elevation.
lowest that they can
The
get.
lowest,
Yeah.
sweet. Okay. Did you have plans to submit, and so one of the original things for the amended order was that an operation and maintenance plan be submitted for how to maintain holes in house when people are like, why hole in house?
I was not aware of that, but we
Okay.
can certainly
It was-
provide that.
Yeah, so that would be, if hole in house was to fly,
Uh-huh.
people would need to know how to maintain them so they're not like, I don't like this, I don't like water in my basement, let me just cover these. And that had
Right.
been another consideration of the commission's previously.
I mean, could I suggest, to address the water in the basement part, can I suggest a sump pump?
Not gonna work, it floods. It's a flood zone, so what
But-
happened, if you saw the pictures,
Mhm.
when the flood comes up 4 or 5 inches above that floor, and you can't pump it anyplace, the area is flooded. Right, a
Yeah,
sump
the
pump-
entirety of the land is
The whole
flooded.
But once it
backyard
does-
is flooded by the brook or the river.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole backyard is flooded and it goes into the house. So the whole idea was to keep the house open, the water would come in, and then the water would go out.
Mm-hmm.
So a sump pump is not going to help you.
Well, once the water's received.
That's
Right.
why the water's supposed to just go out those vents, or go out the back wall that was open. That was the whole premise.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes,
My-
the poor people that end up buying these houses are gonna be in a big mess. And I don't feel comfortable approving something that we didn't approve originally, and, it's tough.
We can certainly provide an operation and maintenance plan, as well as a plan for dealing with the water once it does collect in the basement.
Not a basement.
You get a-
Structurally,
The
The flood
flood storage
Squeegee.
area, yes.
Squeegee comes with home.
Structurally, could the back wall be removed?
I don't
The
believe
header
so.
across the entire back of the building? Not even if it's made out of steel? With some lolly columns on either side?
I mean, we'd have to talk to the engineer. I may play one on TV, but I'm not an engineer, I can't say.
So I
So-
think a big thing that's arising is the amendment as proposed now. So if it's to say the way that it is, does not meet DEP regulations, and therefore cannot meet the Conservation Commission's. So
Doesn't-
it might meet other regulations. It might meet FEMA. It might meet Board of Builders, whatever they're called. They are not us. They are not them. They do not care about FEMA's regulations or the
Understood,
building
okay.
inspector's regulations.
Yeah,
They care about DEP's
so DEP's
regulations.
regulations, and
So the amendment as currently proposed does not meet those.
And
So
why
there's
is
just
that?
No, it
because,
does not allow the unrestricted hydro something or other connection.
relief of the hydrostatic pressure.
Yeah, it does not allow the water to flow unrestricted at all times. Like that water should be able to move freely. And while these are, now unrestricted holes in the house, they're still just, you have a pinhole in a big flat face.
Water goes down.
Yeah,
and
water
it's-
comes in, water has a hard time getting out, and it can't get in and out as fast as it really needs to.
And anytime there's standing water in the basement, that promotes the formation of mold throughout the house.
It's
And
not
if
a
you
basement.
can't pump it because the outside is flooded, and you've got to stand there and you got to wait for the floodwaters to subside.
And then just see
That's
how
the
much
health-
damage
And then you
has
have
been
people
done.
getting really sick.
That was our concern.
Yeah, I mean,
from
what-
the very beginning.
What you've got here is
Permanently
about
sick.
8 square feet of opening, and we proposed that the entire back of the house, which is, I don't know how many square feet it is, I don't remember now, but a
More.
few hundred square feet.
Right, you wanted the entire back wall
Right.
open. I know. And I wasn't involved in any
Oh, I
of this.
Yeah.
until-
I know that.
until we get here,
It's,
so.
we're not, it is what it is at this point, and we're
Yeah.
trying to get through it. So,
Yeah, it's kind of weird to go from here, because an amended order cannot really be issued. We cannot approve an amendment that does not meet any of the regulations. So that's the,
And it's
like,
because of the free flow of water.
yes,
So basically, would need to be in a slab, right, to allow, kind of fill that the flood storage area. But then we wouldn't have the storage volume in order to have the free flow of water.
that was the idea when we approved the original order, was to take the back wall out and have the water freely flow in and freely flow out, uninhibited.
We talked about pilings at one point too, but thought that it was probably a good compromise to have sides. that
in the
allowed
front,
it
so
to
you'd have
be-
you'd have your pretty front, it looks
Right.
like a normal house, and then in the back, it was doing what it needed to
Correct.
do.
We had many months of conversations, and there was a lot of input from all the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And they were concerned about what would happen there as well.
Yeah. So, you know, the difference in elevation is really only what, 4 feet? From the very front to the very rear?
Well,
So we're at 399, 395 at the back,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the initial idea was for that back wall to be open.
Yeah.
Just have like pilings with a steel beam
Correct.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
That's what it was.
Okay.
We were indifferent to the structural part of it, just that the back be open.
Right, right. I mean, so that, ultimately, it's gonna come down to what can actually be done.
We had
With
proposed,
that back wall. If there's,
And you probably get the storage, we mentioned the storage earlier, if there was some way that we could allow it with the vents, and people still are able to store things in there, then you'd have refrigerators up against these vents, you'd have sofas, you'd have all kinds of things,
there shouldn't be any.
which would defeat the
I
purpose.
I completely understand. There
Plus
shouldn't
they
be
take
any
up mass
storage,
inside,
there shouldn't
right?
be any
So-
mechanicals, there should be
Right.
nothing down there.
That
It's
was-
really meant to
Correct.
store
just an
water.
empty box to hold water.
Yeah. But then the issue becomes like, how do we get the free flow and maintain the storage volume, right? So if we were to now basically fill that basement, flood storage area, up to the rear elevation and do the piers, now we'll have the free flow of water, but we're not gonna have the flood storage capacity anymore.
Well, I believe the elevation at 395 is, if you maintain that elevation, you would have your flood storage. But it'd have to be open.
He's saying that there would be some area
Well, there
that
were-
would be taken up by pylons.
They were, they
Yeah,
were
so I
shown.
mean, right
they
now,
were-
there's, okay,
They were shown in the original plan.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a little, what happens, where's the box of flood storage going?
It's in the base, it's in the lower level, but on the plan, it showed,
Oh, just with the pilings in place.
it showed
I,
where there were pilings, or there were columns.
Four- yeah,
There were
four
columns
columns.
to support, I can't really see them on the
along the
plan.
rear wall,
So
yeah.
I'm picturing like 3 walls, right?
Right.
Yeah.
With columns here, holding, so the
That's-
back is wide open, right?
Correct.
Yes, like a horseshoe for the,
Yeah.
Correct. So the original plan showed, there were 3 piers proposed instead of a rear foundation wall. So there were 3 piers shown, and he has this from Goddard Engineering,
Yeah.
and and it was supposed to be open from one end to the other, and it stepped probably from each side, it stepped in 3 feet.
All right.
So he has this is from Goddard, and it was approved. This is what was approved.
Right.
Because this is from December 23rd, 2023.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at the,
It shows what was approved, and he wanted to install the flood vents, and we weren't going with the flood vents. This is for the amendment.
so on the amendment, in the letter sent by Goddard, he talks about how the flood vents, or openings meet the performance standard.
And we didn't agree with that. So what we approved was single-family houses were to each have absent back foundation walls with piers to allow floodwaters to flow freely and enter and exit the rear side of the lowest level of the houses. That's what was approved.
oh,
That was what was approved, yes.
in Goddard's proposal to amend, it met, was it still trying to meet FEMA's requirements for openings, or was it a proposal to?
Yeah, I mean, the openings were FEMA recommended,
Okay,
right? That's
Yeah.
what FEMA wants to see. But
yeah,
obviously, we're, he goes through a narrative of how we comply with the performance standards in 310 CMR 57.
But the DEP
1057.
the DEP does not consider flood openings to be suitable for creation of compensatory storage. The applicant should therefore provide additional information to demonstrate that proposed openings are large enough to allow unrestricted flow. So they don't typically approve the flood vents. DEP, it all came from DEP.
And even when the amendment came in, when DEP received the amendment, they advised that it was not an advisable, like, it was not a conditionable, like it just wasn't, I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact wordage of DEP right now. I can pull it up really quick.
Yeah,
but-
it's in the folder.
Yes, yeah, Judy's response was included.
Do not qualify as compensatory flood stories, unrestricted hydraulic connection to the waterway. Why wasn't an amendment sought?
Right.
All right, so, I mean, I understand what you're saying is how it does not allow the free flow of water. Basically, it spills in and stays. Mold and all those other issues.
Correct.
I'm trying to think of ideas as to how we could have, if we were to have some type of trough system that connected all the openings, so when water came in, there was an exit point without dumping in. Would that be something that we could look at? Because, I mean, you know, the reality now is there's a house there, and there's two houses there, and they're both built like this. And rather than, I mean, if there is a way of doing the steel beam and keeping the rear open, I'll advise my client that's what he needs to do. But from an engineering standpoint, I'm not sure that's possible.
Well,
certainly look into that.
I think originally.
With that house already being there.
I think originally it was, because that's the way it was approved.
Mhm.
And I think that's the way the design was conceptually made. And it may just be a matter of removing the wall and installing some columns above to hold up the beam that's going
And
across
that's
the
going
back.
to comply with the building code as well?
So to avoid a circular argument there, building code requires that at least two sides of the house be open.
Okay.
If you maintain the two openings that are currently on the sides of the house, then you have, if you remove the rear wall and you still have the required number of openings
Mhm.
or required number of open sides of home.
Mhm.
I think that had been one of the concerns meeting the building code.
Yeah.
But obviously, crawl spaces exist. Those are
Yeah.
very, very similar structures to what has been proposed by the commission.
Yeah.
So however those are permitted, it is possible.
Okay.
So it
yeah,
must,
I-
in some way, it must be able to meet a building code, because crawl spaces are common
Sure.
and
Yeah. I mean, that.
still allowed
But
to
I'm
be
saying
built,
with the house.
as far as I
already-
know.
With the house already being built, that's all, really my big question is whether they can go back in there, put in the beam, and they would basically have to fill the basement, in order to allow that free flow of water. So what I'm thinking about, this is just off the top of my head, but if there was some type of trough system, you know, where each opening were connected to a common thing, so that water could come in and have a way to get out.
I don't
It wouldn't spill down into the
Well, it's not gonna spill down to the basement, because when the brook rises, it rises up to that 395 or above elevation, and it just free flows into the basement. And then the idea was for the free flow back. It doesn't dump in, it's at that elevation of the bottom.
Right, so that's what I'm thinking about how we could avoid, is if we had that trough system, so it never actually dumps in.
Oh, it's gonna dump in.
Yeah, they
it
literally
floods.
ran out of room on, like, there's nowhere else to put water. That was why water ended up in the house.
Did you see the
because
pictures of the basement flooded? The basement was flooded.
Yeah.
We have pictures from the building inspector.
Well, because that's how it's built now, not without the trough system.
But you're proposing a French drain so that the water never reaches the house? Is that what
No,
you're
no,
Okay.
just, you have your opening here, you have your opening here. We connect those two openings with a trough.
But the whole basement is supposed to be storage.
It's supposed to be.
So if you connect them, then you're defeating the purpose
It's
of having a
flood
basement,
storage.
of flood storage.
The area in the basement was considered flood storage, because there
Right.
isn't enough flood storage on the property. That's how he was able to build 2 houses.
Yeah, so if we don't have the basement, we don't have the flood storage.
Correct.
Exactly.
But we're saying that you want to fill that basement.
No, we don't want to fill it.
No.
How-
We want to open it up so that
Yeah.
it's, so currently, there's the flood storage available. You have your box of flood storage.
Yeah.
You cannot reach your box of flood storage. Like, it's there, you can't get to it though, or obviously
Well,
the
with the
water.
openings, you
Yes,
can.
the water does not allow the water to go, so like, it's available. We have enough flood storage with the houses. If you get rid of the houses, you don't have enough flood storage anymore. But you can't reach it, that's the.
Well, right.
That's the impasse.
I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yes,
If we
exactly.
fill the basement, though.
No.
if
No,
we-
we're not
You cannot.
proposing
You
to build a
can't fill the
basement.
basement.
So, okay, so then we open that back wall
Mm-hmm.
down, so it's standing on these little beams, and the flood waters come in, they're still gonna fall back it down
It's
into the
level.
basement.
No, the basement's flat. The elevation of the basement is
Pitched toward the water.
basically the same elevation as the outside ground surface. So when the water gets up to that elevation, the 395, it rises up, it goes in, and it free flows back out. Goes in and out. It doesn't drop in, because it's a level.
Only
Level flow.
only on the sides does it drop in, and that's only if the water is high enough that it's gonna come in and out of those sides.
Right, and
So I understand where you're
that
talking
means the
about.
Yeah,
house is
I'm
sitting
thinking about a
on foot
basement.
of water.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about a basement, right? It's a big concrete box, right?
It's a walkout. It's a walkout.
Yeah,
Okay,
So the back area, the back wall of the walkout is that grade of the.
There's a slider there.
They put
Okay.
a slider in, so the slider is not supposed to, so that whole back wall is supposed to be open to the elements of the elevation of the backyard, which is basically the 395 or 394.8, whatever. Okay, so it's a little bit higher. But that area within the house was used for flood storage. And that's how he was able to construct the 2 houses. We tried
Okay.
we asked him to only build 1, and he said, no, we can build 2, and he used the basement as the flood storage.
okay, I'm starting to get this now. So, Elia, we have the openings, so there's A, B, C, D, E, F, right?
yeah.
So basically what we're saying is A and F are too high, right?
Yeah, they meet if you,
So
like,
B-
separated all the levels, the highest level needed access.
Right.
Obviously, that's not how yeah.
So it's, okay, so it's still gonna come in. Now.
Yes.
So now what we have is the openings at B, C, D, and E.
Yes,
Those are all at
the lowest
the
level.
lowest level. And with those openings being open, why are you saying that the
Because
water
it's
won't
about
flow?
5 square feet of open space that are or the 4 that are facing the river, the brook. And we wanted the entire back open. Okay? And DEP has commented to the same.
Because,
So having the openings
it's
doesn't.
it's a really tiny hole in another, like, we had proposed
No.
a really big hole.
So.
And now these are much smaller holes, so it is going to
So you have
slow the
two,
flow.
you have, I don't wanna sit here and argue with you all, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
You've
No,
done
you're
it.
not arguing,
Yeah.
no, you're trying to understand what.
I'm trying to get, yeah.
We're not-
Trying to understand a year and a
So,
half of
so,
project.
okay, so on the
I
back
have
wall,
it
though,
memorized.
on the back wall, we have, 4 of these vents, of these openings. Each one is 185, 189, 186 square feet, so I mean, they're.
No.
Inches.
Square inches.
Square inches, sorry.
5 by
So,
144.
I mean, so you got, you have your openings, and the water will come in and will come out.
Then you go back to DEP comments, and this is what we base it, they do not approve the openings, the flood storage vent openings, they don't approve those.
Mhm.
So,
Even in
That's-
other projects where the flood vents have been removed, DEP has still
Said no to
Like
the
break
open.
said
away
no
walls.
to the openings, because it's still, even though it is just a hole, it's just, it's a small hole in a big wall, whereas we had proposed
No wall.
no wall.
All
No wall.
All
Yeah.
hole, no wall.
So if he,
So this is
If
small
you-
hole, lots of wall,
If he
lots
would
of
to-
thing to hit.
if he was to come back to us and propose what we approved, or something very close to that,
Then you would need an amended order.
then you would be in compliance with the original order.
So if we were to just take out the sliding door, I mean, I know it's not completely open, but we're giving you a really,
Bigger
if we're to
hole.
just, yeah,
In
it's
the-
a
in
lot
the-
more area for the water to flow in.
You are correct, but what we were concerned about, and when we talked about this, if you have the wood and you have the wall structure on the cement, and the water does go in and it gets impeded and it gets into the wood, then you could have issues with rotting or something else. That's why it was all concrete and it was
Supposed to be
open,
poured concrete
open
walls.
from foundation wall to foundation wall, so the water would come in and go out freely.
Mhm.
And then it would be open to the elements, it would air, it would dry out, and it would do its thing.
All right.
So if, that's where we're coming from.
Okay, I understand and hear you loud and clear. I'll go back to my client and see what we can do.
Appreciate it
So
very
that
much.
back wall is a wood wall. So
Correct.
it can be removed.
It can be, correct.
Yeah, because the sidewalls are concrete, poured concrete, correct?
To a
Yes.
extent, I believe,
Yeah.
all the way up to the.
So lolly columns or something along would be okay, right?
Correct.
We wouldn't
Lolly
object.
columns may very well rust and rot out.
Something similar.
Something
that's
similar,
going
not
to-
them, though.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for
Steel.
support. I mean, they're gonna need some kind of.
Some
support
type of
structure.
structural support that,
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
Yeah, we're probably impartial to that. I think it would
Right.
just be,
correct.
keeping it small enough.
Mhm.
If you have enough columns, it suddenly is a wall again.
All right, we have one
So-
question. We have a question.
Oh,
Nadine Garnett, 43 LeBlanc Road. Since this is a public hearing, I had a couple comments to make on this. I've been watching this project since the jump, and to be honest, I am absolutely disgusted by it. I'm sorry, I'm really frustrated right now. This applicant has been a builder in this town for quite some time. He's done several projects. He knows what he's doing, and he knows what he's doing very well. This isn't the first time he's done something like this, and I know this well. There's been other projects that we've done similar type things where we play games. I probably shouldn't use those words, but where we change our plans to make them more advantageous to our project, not to the rules. I'm a town meeting member. I am one that sets the rules for people to follow. We make zoning bylaws for people to follow for a reason. And I'm sorry you're the lawyer here. I was hoping that Rashid would be here so that I could speak directly to him. I watched every single one of these meetings, and he sat there in this chair, and he was told over and over and over and over again exactly what was expected of him and of this project. These people right here and the people that sat in those chairs before him told him, you can build one house and you can build it like this. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it. Okay, well then you can build two houses and you can do it like those plans right there. Well, guess what? He didn't do. He didn't do it. So I'm looking at two houses right now that they told him, you cannot put stairs in this basement. Well, now I'm looking at two houses with stairs in the basement. They also told him you cannot put anything bigger than, you can't put full-size basements that all you can have is crawl spaces. Wasn't that discussed?
Well, it was discussed. There were a lot of things discussed, but
Yeah.
hopefully now, we're gonna be on the right path and we can get this resolved.
So we don't have crawl spaces, we have full-size basements that people are going to use as storage. We have stairs going down to those. We have patio doors going out into the backyard. We have everything he wanted that he built. He went against everything that he was advised not to do. It is classic how he builds. He knew what he was doing, and I'm tired of him doing it the way he wants, and I'm hoping that something changes so that he can't do this.
Well,
There should be some kind of remedy
we're
and
gonna
penalty.
we're gonna try and get to a remedy the best we can, and we're working through that, and Rashid's lawyer's here, and he understands, and we're gonna do the best we can to resolve it, and we're working towards that.
Well, I hope there's a penalty also. There should be a penalty assessed.
All right.
This is ridiculous.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Continue the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll continue to July
With
16th.
I guess the hopes of closing it to restore to the original order of conditions, I think is the.
Yeah, I need to
intent
have a
at
long
this point.
talk with these, okay?
Yeah.
With the whole team.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Because, yeah,
And if you-
currently the amendment as proposed does not work, so
If you have, if you're going to come in and propose something prior to the next meeting, if you have something, give it to Leah so we can look at it and then we can get some feedback. But, I mean,
Sure.
you hear it, you heard what everybody said.
Yeah.
And you know what we're looking for, what was in the order.
Yep.
And if you can get to that point, I think and I don't think it's going to be as hard as you think to do. So,
I will soon find out.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Have a wonderful evening.
me too.
All right, where are we?
Sorry.
All right, on to new and old business.
Did 369 Holden Street get, oh, that's continued.
Yeah, that's
All right,
continued.
Excellent.
We closed 3369.
There's your two determinations of applicability that you closed.
Okay.
So we have, let's see, we need somebody to make a motion on a order of condition for 33-69 Green Street. There were some conditions, I think, too, right?
Yes, there's going to be a separate filing for construction trailer, but we were wanting details on the landscape plan and O&M on the landscape plan.
Would you like to
Contingent
make a
upon a
motion to that?
landscape ownership and maintenance plan.
Wait, what are our conditions?
So I
Chris,
believe
do you just want to make that?
there was
You feel?
we need that landscape.
comfy
doing that? It's going to be submitted prior to the certificate of compliance issued.
Yep.
And that they're going to come back to us with another order for the construction of a sales office.
Yes,
and
I do
potential
have
basement.
wordage to that effect for the special, so the
Does
special
that need to
condition
go
as.
into the condition?
Yeah, the special
Okay.
condition as discussed for the construction of the sales and construction trailer was that any work related, including erosion control, earthwork, and construction, to the construction and management of the sales and construction trailer, referenced in whatever plan set it's referenced in, shall not be approved under the order of conditions issued at this time, or under this order of conditions.
All right, I'm willing to try this.
I have a little cheat sheet if you'd like to, here, you can you pass that along?
I'll take that. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a little haphazard, but there you go. You can mostly just go with the main.
All right.
Sorry, I've got chicken scratch.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for the construction of a residential multifamily housing communities consisting of 300 units, clubhouse supporting amenities and infrastructure at 33 to 69 Green Street, with the conditions that a long-term landscape management plan be submitted to the commission prior to the issuing of.
Of certificate of compliance.
Thank you. Thank you. My brain's turned off too.
Yep.
Of the certificate of compliance. And that any work related to the construction and management of a sales and construction trailer referenced in a particular plan set shall not be approved under this order of conditions.
Exactly.
I second that
Beautifully.
motion.
All there in favor?
Aye.
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 420.
All right, now we're moving on to
Thank you.
422 South Quinsigamon Ave. Do we have any motion or discussion?
Those special conditions.
422 South Quinsigamon Ave. We were going to continue, a condition upon perpetuity of a, I can't read my writing. It was a planting mix, maybe?
Consideration of a non-turf lawn.
That's what it was.
Yes, a native grass alternative. And that their landscape architect would provide one of those.
Okay. So I move that we issue an order of conditions for the construction of a two-family home at 422 South Quinsigamond Avenue, with a special condition to include the consideration by the landscape architect for the inclusion of native non-grass alternatives to turf.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now, we have one more, and that's
7
Temple Court. Do we
Okay.
have, somebody wants
All
to
right.
make a motion?
I move that we issue an order of conditions for 7 Temple Court, Shrewsbury, with the condition that a second erosion control barrier be added
At the top of the slope.
at the top of the slope.
I believe it was a straw wattle barrier,
Yeah, just a
straw wattle.
straw wattle would be
Okay,
fine.
so straw wattle, erosion control barrier at the top of the slope, and that revised plans be submitted showing the new orientation of the deck and stairs.
Yes. So this project does require waivers to the wetlands, the Shrewsbury Wetlands bylaw and regulations. So I guess I'll list all of the waivers that have been requested, and then you can just make one motion because you're supposed to make a separate motion to approve those waivers, according to the planning board. Let me look at those.
We do that
Let me.
right now?
Doing that now?
Yes, because you include it as part of your motion. And then when I write this, the order of conditions, there'll be a special page that says, here are all the waivers that you asked for, here's what was approved. And then if there's any discussion about whether or not you don't want to approve any of them, speak afterwards. So one of the waivers is that some of the house will be within the 30-foot buffer.
Correct.
As well as some of the foundation and porch. And then the driveway will be almost entirely within the 30-foot buffer. Was there something else?
We have to condition the trees and a 2-inch caliper.
Yes, you should
Yeah,
have
we
a
should-
special
that
condition
was-
for trees.
Martha, that was
Two-inch
something.
caliper.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. I think I interrupted in the middle of your.
Do you want me to restate the whole thing?
Probably.
Yeah, for the record.
I think I got it. You probably don't need to go through the whole thing again. As long as you initially made a motion to issue.
Right.
We can go through the special conditions, but we have the record. We have Darling Mark taking the record.
Okay. So we add the special condition of the 2-inch caliper trees.
Yes.
To replace 1-to-1 ratio of the trees that will be removed. And that we accept the waivers to the Shrewsbury Wetlands bylaw.
Yes.
Okay.
So that you will make a separate, just the waivers, you will make a separate motion for. You motion to
so-
approve the waivers requested by the applicant, basically.
Okay. So let's get this
She needs a
motion
second
passed.
on
Yes,
first.
so you,
So I second your motion.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And I also move that we accept the waivers to the Shrewsbury Wetlands bylaws that the applicant has requested, as elucidated by Alea.
awesome.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving right along. Certificates of compliance.
I have one certificate of compliance this evening for 9 Farmington Lane Ave, something, 9 Farmington. This was for the construction of a pool several years ago at this point. They just, I think they stabilized their rear yard space and then built a pool on it. It looks built according to plans and is well stabilized. And then they have they do have a chain link fence along the rear of the yard and then a very steep slope. So there's no, probably interest in encroachment further towards the wetland in the future. It would be difficult to do as such. 9 Farmington Drive, I apologize, that was not one of the options presented to you.
Okay.
And then
11 Sunset Lane is continued forever ago, yeah. I
Okay.
think that died. I think the real estate agent lost interest or something, I don't know.
All right. All right, so then going on to updates, 101 North Quinsigamon Avenue, retaining wall.
Yes, so this, we do have the homeowner here tonight for that. So this, oops, I think June 2nd is when I received notification that the retaining wall may have failed. I was able to get out there yesterday to confirm that the retaining wall had failed. It's basically, at 101 North Quinsigamon, the wall is basically fallen over into the water, so there's like a little pile of large bricks, whatever those are called, stones, yeah.
Come right up to the front
Yeah,
table.
you can sit down if you, yeah.
Just, and you state your name and address.
Sure. My name is Vishal Nath. I live at 101 North Quinsigamon Avenue at Shrewsbury. So, one fine morning, I was aware that the retaining one portion of the retaining wall just blew and fell over in the lake. So there was then of course I had to get it done pronto. So I contacted conservation too because it is on the lake. So I had to know what are the rules to get it fixed. So I thought, I don't know what happens next. I just knew I needed a permit or something to do the work. And hence I contacted, and here I am asking you.
So what do you suggest we do?
I would recommend that an emergency certification form be issued by the commission, because this, like, the retaining wall has failed pretty tremendously, and there's like a large, I think I have photos.
I have a
There's
picture if
large,
you want to see
yeah,
it.
exactly,
How
there's a
tall
large
is the
wall
wall?
of dirt,
how tall is the wall?
probably about 3 to 4 feet,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll show the picture.
And there's just a wall of dirt behind it that's still standing, but it's at a pretty open part of the lake. It's by Eagle Cove, or Eagle Head condominiums.
Oh, yes.
So it's in a very open part of the lake where
Good.
it is susceptible to
Wave.
So that's not that old of a wall, so that was,
12, 13, 14 years ago, when it was
Hmm.
built. We bought it 12 years ago, but it was built a year and a half prior to that.
Mhm.
So
So it was originally permitted to be built.
Right.
Yeah, the commission had permitted it to be built, but obviously it was built.
wasn't built correctly.
No, it was just kind of like stood up
So
against dirt.
are you able to access the back of your property with?
yes,
Okay.
with the anticipation of this, I had a rig called in so that you need to pull the stone out of the water first, and then layer it, backfill it with 3 minuses, put a sheet, and just step it up. That was the.
So do you want him to do this work under the emergency order? And then how do we memorialize it?
That I think was gonna be the big question, because, yeah, you'd want to ensure that the wall is constructed better this time.
Yeah,
so it
of
doesn't
course.
Fall over
Yeah,
again.
because I was not part, I mean, we bought it, the construction, Highland did it. So now, looking at it why did it fall? I mean, it's not like every day it happens. It seems there was no proper drainage along this wall. Because I couldn't find anything which will show me that there's a drainage. So maybe the pushing of the wall because of lack of drainage, so this time really we need to have a proper drainage running along it so that,
Right.
because I could not find, like we probed around, I said there should be something, but again, having said that, that is one thing, then of course having those geo mats and each level.
Geogrid behind it.
Yeah.
So maybe, Leah, we should suggest that he just do what he can to stabilize it,
Okay,
and then come back to us with a plan showing how that wall's going to be constructed properly.
Okay.
And you'll have to hire a contractor or an engineer or something.
Yeah, so I had in anticipation, I got a contractor because moving that rig down the hill and then somebody expert needs to do it. So they are like licensed contractors, so they can move it out, lay it up over. But I can just first have to, like you said, stabilize it, get it stacked up so that the mud doesn't go because
Correct.
if it rains. That's we have this. We're going to put tomorrow the barriers, what do you call that? The straw rolls behind this black flags, which you have those things, stilt flags things, so that at least there's no erosion because of that.
Well, I would do what you could do to pull those blocks back as best you can and stabilize it, and then you need to get an engineer and a contractor to come before us to say, with a plan to show exactly what they're going to do to retrofit that, because it failed because maybe it wasn't constructed properly, so.
yeah, so an emergency certificate would allow you to stabilize the area and kind of like rope off the water. And then prior to actually building the wall, you should have it, oh no, don't die yet. You should have an engineered plan created. With, the geofilter stuff, fabric and like, and drainage, any drainage that's necessary. You'll submit that as part of an application.
Okay, so at least can I do the base layer at least on the bottom, because it doesn't wash out, just put the bricks, the stones on the lowest most, like on the closest to the wall, like if this is the mud, just put it here at the one line so that it has some.
But the thing is, if you start excavating and rebuilding that without a proper plan showing how it's going to be done, I would just bring them back to a point where they're not gonna fall and cause any more erosion, but you need to get a plan showing on your lot plan, the location of the wall. You need to have an engineer showing how this is going to be designed so it doesn't happen again.
Okay.
I mean, that could impact your neighbors down the way too. So,
Okay.
Good, could just stabilize that.
right?
Yeah, it looks like it's behind the stairs. It looks
Right.
like it's leaning out.
Right, I
It
mean,
is, actually.
Yeah, so we have to,
you may need to come in and pull some of that earth away and pull it back. I don't know how big your yard is, but pull some of that back and bring the blocks back.
All the more reason to have an engineer do it.
yeah,
But you can probably do that now, just to get them out and
Oh,
stabilize the area, and then come back with a plan showing exactly what you're going to be doing.
okay. So,
So as part of the emergency certificate, he should probably remove the blocks from the area so they're not like adding to the detritus and the things that are in the pond. And then,
You need to stabilize that slope so it doesn't keep washing.
yeah, so do you want some soil to be, okay, she's dead.
Yeah, pull some of the soil back, and then maybe you could leave temporary a row of blocks on the
Yeah,
bottom,
yeah,
just to
exactly.
hold it until you can get a plan. Maybe
Exactly.
Leave a row or two on the bottom.
exactly,
stack
that's
up
what I'm talking about.
neatly. That way, when the water does, I know there's a lot of waves, and it causes a lot of issues with walls. That'll help stabilize or keep any more
erosion.
soil from washing into the
Exactly,
lake.
that's what I
You
want.
don't want that soil to go into the lake.
Exactly, that's why I wanted at least a bottom row so that they don't splash on
So
the,
1 to 2 rows of
Leave.
the stones should be reinserted.
Yep, temporarily, and then come back to us with a plan to show exactly what you're going to do to put them back permanently.
okay. And I heard over the period of time, this next meeting is 16th July.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I cannot do it, I can show those plans prior to that.
That's when our next meeting is. It's going to take you a bit to get an engineer and a plan to show all of that information. You need to
You
have.
can, so you can, as part of the emergency certificate, you can start putting those you can put those blocks in
now,
place and
yeah.
remove the rest of the blocks, so they're not adding to it.
Right,
That's what you do under the emergency certificate.
okay,
While you're doing that, you can start drafting your engineered plans.
okay,
And then you can apply for the July 16th meeting. That would be part of an application process, so you would need to apply probably, I don't know if the commission would be amenable to just an RDA, or if you'd prefer an NOI be filed.
I think that needs an NOI. You're right on the
NOI?
lake.
Okay.
There's a lot of work to be done there. So
Okay.
You should do an NOI.
Okay.
I will
So-
Follow Leah,
These
and
are
Leah,
application types we can discuss at a later date.
Leah
but-
will help you with tell you where to go and what to do with the application process.
okay.
You need to find a contractor, an engineer, who's familiar with these types of walls.
okay.
Do you think you have somebody?
Yeah, I have somebody.
Okay.
I have the contractor, I can just find an engineer who did we did some work with him earlier, so I
Okay.
can try to find him and.
And yeah, if he's done work on your property before, he's probably familiar with the application process for the Conservation Commission, because if it's on your property, it's probably within the waterfront area, our buffer zone, so.
Okay.
He may have, if he's not familiar with the Wetlands Protection Act or the Conservation Commission, you might want to seek out an engineer who's familiar, who can kind of help you
Okay.
walk through that process, so you can do it all at once and not drag it out like other projects.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right.
Yeah, I think Ann.
Oh, Ann, do you have a question?
I do.
Is it related to this wall?
It absolutely is.
All right, well then.
Good evening, Ann Zedek Sumner from 9799 North Quinsigamond Ave. I am an abutter, and the stone wall that you saw just to the right of where the collapse was is my property and my wall. There's already heavy equipment on site delivering soil and other things, so if we could be really clear about what the stabilization plan is, I think that would be very helpful, so that we could also understand whether there's compliance there or not. Secondly, I am very concerned about the impact to where his wall was and where my wall starts. There were stones and various protective retaining items there, and those are now down. And so I am concerned that the water is going to go up and come behind my wall and influence that negatively. So I'm not, I totally agree. I had emailed him and he had agreed, something urgently needs to be done because the wakeboarding boats are out there and those waves
Right.
go over already you saw the pile of stones. I think if you lower that much, that sort of acts as a breakwater right now, and I don't think that's a good thing, but it's something to help.
So what we asked him to do is to pull back some of those stones, leave 2 blocks high to kind of stabilize it for now until we can get a plan, an engineer plan showing exactly what needs to be done. Because if you rebuild the whole wall
Yeah.
at this point, it might not. We need something that's designed.
So as long as and I would ask the commission's assistance with this to make sure that there's something to also stabilize that area between the 2 walls.
You understand what Ann is
there's
asking
just-
for? So where your wall meets her wall, we need to make sure that the water doesn't get behind her wall and cause a further erosion there too.
So if my wall doesn't meet her wall with the new design, will that then be a problem?
It should meet her wall.
It should meet her wall.
But it did not before.
It did not?
And given the state of what happened. I'm very glad that it didn't attach, because then mine would have
Yeah.
sort
But
of
it should-
cascaded in.
It should abut your wall or
With some
create-
kind of separation, though, with some stabilization in there.
All right,
An
so,
isolation, yeah.
so when
I don't
your
know the
engineer comes, he needs to assess how your wall influences Ann's wall, and you may have to do something special in between where the two meet to create and not to create an issue of erosion,
Okay.
all right?
All right, so when I seek out engineer, he would advise me accordingly,
Correct.
I guess. But my understanding is like, there's a wall ends here, if you see the picture, and there's a wall which ends here.
You can't, how, that space in between the two walls.
It has to be filled in.
Has to be filled with something that's going to prevent erosion behind the wall. Again, that's probably how your wall failed with all the large waves. Water probably got behind it and probably made it fall in. So that needs to be a great detail looked at that, where the two walls don't meet.
So that is the purpose of that, what I will instruct, I'm just trying to understand so that I instruct, that between the two walls, there should be some kind of stuff that would prevent erosion, which does not destabilize any walls.
Correct. That detail needs to be looked
Yeah,
at
so
seriously.
that this is the purpose, whatever
Yep.
needs to be done for this.
I mean, get what you can out of the lake. I mean, the best time to rebuild this wall would be during the drawdown, when the water is low.
During what, sir?
During the drawdown. when the
Drawdown,
lake is- In
drawdown.
the winter, when the lake is low. That would probably be the best time to do all the construction, but for now, get some blocks up, so at least stabilize, so it's not creating any more erosion.
Okay. All right.
And then just let Alea know what you're doing, and when you start this, so she can take a look at it to make sure we're all in good shape.
Okay.
Okay?
And whatever erosion control, because there is new, fresh soil out there to get the heavy equipment down.
Okay.
Yeah, you may have to put some
Just-
erosion control.
Unless you were
devices
there
on
later
washing it.
today.
Yeah, no, I was there, I got out there yesterday.
So we got all the supplies for the erosion controls, all I need to, is what I just mentioned, it needs to be put up, because I just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
I have your permission to do stuff.
Yeah, put the erosion control up and make sure it's in good working order, so
Yeah.
it doesn't cause any more
Yeah,
oil washing.
absolutely, it's my backyard, so I don't want it to fall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you get all the orders of conditions to sign? too?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the-
Did I-
How do I get that, do I come tomorrow to get that permit?
Yes, I can email you.
Tomorrow's a holiday.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, tomorrow is a holiday, thank you, Kenny.
It is, it's June
So Thursday, I will be able to issue the emergency certificate, and I can send you an email. so you can- yeah, Let me,
Martha, do you wanna do this?
I don't have my card.
Sure.
You're gonna get nominated?
Somebody's got no.
Yes,
I'll
I
nominate
can.
you. I've already-
You can just send it to conservation.
You're
at
gonna get
Shrewsbury
nominate-
and
I'm gonna nominate. Already,
Yeah, I'm already on the link.
I've got my script.
All right, we're gonna move on
Yes, at Shrewsbury, MA.
before it becomes tomorrow.
So next on the agenda,
Can edit that out.
We're going to elect a representative for the Community Preservation Committee. Do we have somebody that would like to serve on this committee?
I would be willing to serve, Mr. Chair.
All right.
I make a motion, we nominate
Yes.
Martha to serve as our representative on the Community Preservation Committee.
Second.
My name's Aaliyah.
Second.
Yep, I'm the- yeah,
All in
first.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Martha, you've been reappointed?
I've been
Yes.
reappointed.
Hoorah.
So you gave me 5 to sign, but we only had.
Next item on the agenda is to extend the order of conditions at, we're going to extend the order of conditions at the police station. Is that correct?
Yes, it sure is. So
There-
this was for the, so as you guys have probably noticed, the stormwater basins were a major topic of concern during the construction of the police station. Diane, you were here for all of this, so.
But I kind of witnessed.
But yeah, you've probably followed up on it. So one of the concerns was the amount of water that's maintained in the basins, and they weren't sure what the problem with that was. But they are now going with the original plan to put all the plantings in the basins and see if the water problem clears up. So right now, they are installing the plantings as originally proposed. They need more time to do this, obviously, because their order of conditions expires on Friday. So I propose to grant them the standard 3-year extension. They will have plenty of time to finish their thing, see how it grows for the next year or so, and then come back to wrap it all up, or take it all out and try again if it wasn't what needed to happen.
All right, do we
So
have?
that's what this is for.
Anybody like to make a motion, please?
I move that we extend the order of conditions for the standard 3 years for DEP 2851891, which is the Shrewsbury Police Station.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything else to come before?
Oh, I was counting wrong. That's what I was doing.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.